Okay, and Trustee Marilyn Roger is joining us this evening via Zoom. Our first item is, I didn't even get to say hello to you guys. We're so busy setting up. It's great to see you. Our student representatives to the board. So take your pick, toss a coin. Who's going first tonight?
All right, it's good to see everyone. I got a lot of pie in the house today, so
Tengo muchas cosas que decir en ahora.
focused a lot about ASB stuff, kind of stuff that's been going on last couple of weeks.
Tenemos que darles información de todas las cosas que han sucedido en las últimas semanas.
A lot of different participants.
Muchos estudiantes participaron.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Yeah, so we had a blood drive last Wednesday. It was very successful. We had a lot of participants. The statistic was that we saved approximately 90 lives was the number. So we're very proud of that. We're very also just lucky that we're able to do blood drives, and second one of the year. It just feels really great to, help some people out, and it's a very great event. So I'm sure you'll be hearing about them for years to come. And yeah, super excited about that. We also had a rally Friday before last. It was a spring sports rally and the final rally of our year. It was a great rally, super action-packed. It was to highlight our spring athletics. So we had a lot of the captains, speak and celebrate their athletics. And then we also had a lot of fun games. We had sumo, like blow-up hamster suit wrestling, which sounds exciting as it sounds. And then we also we showcased our prom video, which announced our prom theme and location, which I will reveal at the end of the board meeting, so don't worry. And then we also had a promposal. Our very own Cy Isaacs did a promposal to his girlfriend in the crowd, which was very sweet, and the crowd went wild, obviously. So that was a lot of fun. And then we finished it off with a pie eating competition, actually between myself, our vice president next year, Taya Kalbakov, and Mr. Rosenblum, who's a math teacher at our school. So it was a great rally to end the year off. We had a lot of fun, and yeah.
Who won the pie?
Oh, I did win the pie eating competition. Yeah. By a hair.
What kind of pie?
It was a lalberry. I think that's how you say it. Yeah.
Sounds messy.
But Teo almost beat me. It was like bites, like that close. So yeah. But it was a really fun rally, great way to end off the year. And yeah, so next I'm going to talk about the 50-day dinner. Unfortunately, I was a bit under the weather for the 50-day dinner, so I wasn't able to make it, but I've heard from student reports it was a great event. 805 Tacos was the caterer at the event. They're a consistent vendor of ours. Their food is really great. And it was just kind of, Mr. Dickinson spoke as well at the 50-day dinner. And Julian Gibson, who is a beloved senior at our school, won the mini fridge that was raffled off. So super exciting for him. And overall, it's just a good event for all the seniors to get together during graduation season. A lot of us are going to, have a lot of fun going to things like those, just kind of getting ready for graduation. So very excited that, it's that time. Next, I want to talk about intramural sports, because we've been doing intramural sports all year long. Basketball, futsal, spike ball. There was dodgeball as well. And our final one will be cornhole. So we have our intramural cornhole tournament, which will be the last one for the year. So that's going to be signing up right now, and it's going to be very exciting. And then last but not least, the moment you've all been waiting for, our prom will be on May 13th from 8 to 10:30 at the Fremont Theater. The theme will be a night in Las Vegas. So we're going to have, card games. Each student will take home a personalized poker chip with like the Tiger logo and then prom 2023 on both sides. And, last year's prom at the Fremont was a great time, and I'm sure this one will live up to the expectations. So very excited for prom. It's going to be a blast. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. Thank you all.
It's a busy time of year. Thanks, Atticus. All right, Anna.
Okay, I think that's on. Okay, there we go. So since it is the end of the year, we have actually a lot to report on at Morbe High. So I'm kind of gonna go through last week, this week, and then kind of our upcoming stuff that's happening. So last week, our avid students were able to go on a trip to visit UCSB and CCSU Channel Islands. We also held a book launch party for our student-produced book called The American Melting Pot: Immigrant Oral History. And we held our second meeting of College Bound today, which is a new mentorship program for Quest College Bound students that aspire to transfer to universities. And it's to support what we hope will be a huge increase in the former Morabe High students that successfully transferred to universities after 2 years at Cuesta. We also held a student recognition luncheon with staff, and each staff invited 2 students. And there was a taco bar for 150 people total. And our awesome school chef, Corey, our ASB class, and our FFA class prepared and served all of the food. Last Wednesday, I believe, or Thursday, we had our open house, which was super, super successful. And also last week, we had a panel of 13 seniors that shared advice on topics such as developing a college list, admissions essays, committing to a college, and whatnot. And this was our Just for Juniors event, which was geared towards educating our juniors on the ins and outs of the college admission process. And we also held blood drive. That was through our philanthropy crew in ASB. And then this week, yesterday, had our grand opening of our new Commons and Cafe, which many of you guys were at, which was really cool to see you all there. We also had our mayor and KSBY there, which was awesome. And then today, our student senators met with the Morabe Public Works Director and his team in order to have student awareness and input of the possibilities of improvements to the off-ramp and the intersection at Main Street and Highway 41. And tomorrow, our mock trial team will be recognized by the Los Osos Kiwanis, and they've been invited to present at the Slow Law Day event on Thursday evening, which is really cool. They've been doing great this year. And then finally for next week, upcoming, next Monday night is our Morabe High Film Fest at the Bay Theater at 4 o'clock. Super huge. Try and go if you all can. Next Wednesday is our FFA banquet. And then next Thursday night is our Avid Senior Celebration. All 24 of our Avid seniors were accepted to at least one four-year university.
Wonderful.
Next Friday, May 12th, will be our first ever Pirate Olympics with 4th and 5th graders from Del Mar, Baywood, and Monarch Grove. They'll be doing athletic and academic challenges, and our high school students have the opportunity to come during lunch to the stadium. They can watch a flag football tournament, or they can go out to the pool to watch inner tube water polo. It's really cool. And that's all I have.
Yeah, that's all you have. Yeah, this is such a busy time of year for everyone, and it's great stuff. So, as always, Atticus, you want to stick around and hear what? Okay, I think you should, and you're gonna listen in. So, I know those of us who attended the opening of the cafe yesterday, it was so impressive, and they have the tour of the kitchen. It was great. So, and yeah, you're continuing to do wonderful things, and you will both be with us till the end of the school year, won't you? Okay, all right. We just need to check in on that. All right, thank you. And as you know, you're welcome to stick around, but we know you have other things going on. Our next item is San Luis Obispo High School program highlights.
Yeah, very exciting. This is the last of our school highlights for the year, as we have employee recognition at the next meeting and retirees at the last meeting of May. And tonight, as you mentioned, we have San Luis Obispo High, and Principal Roland Dickinson is here with some students to share school highlights. Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you so much for having us here this evening. Atticus, great job. There really is so much to celebrate at SLO High. We're not perfect, but each day we really take seriously the work that we do to try to continue the long tradition of excellence at San Luis High with a focus on equity and really intentional work to create a culture of care and a culture of safety in our schools. We have students who just got back from Texas with robotics, and we're at the World Championships. They just did a KSBY interview today at our school. We have students in FFA who just won the state championship in that event. We have students who are breaking records in the pool, breaking records on the track. The list just goes on. But today for our focus, I thought I would highlight these moments where our students have created opportunities or participated in opportunities to have an audience bigger than the classroom itself. So bigger than the students in the classroom, bigger than the teacher. And it's pretty inspiring what our students do. So we're going to highlight what our new Creative Writing Club is up to and the district-wide creative writing contest that they did, our student-directed play, our SLO High Film Festival, and then one of our Tigers who's been in the news a little bit of late just because she's pretty awesome. So first, Wesley about Creative Writing Club.
Hello, members of the school board. My name is Wesley Bartlett, and I'm a sophomore here at SLO High and the president of our SLO High Creative Writing Club. I'm here today to speak a little bit about the club and how much of an impact it has had on our campus. In the span of 1 year, we have been able to greatly increase our membership and provide many students at our school with something that they desperately need, a time set aside from their busy schedule to pursue a hobby. It was a simple idea that our club was founded on. It has led to some truly incredible things. Last Tuesday, we were able to host an awards night ceremony in our theater with a district-wide creative writing competition that we created and held across the past 2 months. We had an excellent turnout in our theater. We had over 200 people express interest in the competition and another 100 turn in their submissions. My wonderful club advisor, Mrs. Sainsbury, and I went to Bishop's Peak, Pacheco, and Teach Elementary to better advertise this competition. I'm so grateful, not just to this school, but to all the schools in the district for making this first-time competition such a huge success. All principals and teachers were great at responding to my emails and carrying news about the competition along to their students. From the organization of Mr. Stewart and his willingness to help us set the event in the theater to the easy ASB application process that started this club in the first place, SLO High is always there to help students pursue their interests and get involved with their community. It might seem small, but the programs we created here got over 100 people across our district to put in some time to reinvigorate their passion towards writing, led to a wonderful awards night in our theater that showed many incoming students what SLO High has to offer.
And we have one of our winners here with us, or a winner in the 11th grade part of the competition.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asia Jade, and I'm a junior here at SLOHS. I also placed first for the creative writing competition this year. And I was really happy and excited that the Creative Writing Club decided to host this event this year because I thought it was a really fun opportunity for all the schools in the district to come together and express themselves using their own creative expression. And I always feel like our school plans really cool and fun events, but I wish we started this sooner. And even though we didn't, I'm glad we have it now. And I really hope this is something we can continue to do forward. Thank you.
Now to talk about our student-directed play, Sense and Sensibility, Charlie Beck.
Hello, members of the school board. My name is Charlie Beck, and I'm a junior here at SLO High. Today, I'm here to discuss the performing arts, including our upcoming projects, the club community, and the culture of theater on our campus overall. I've been involved with the Performing Arts Company for all 3 years of my high school career. I've gone from performing plays on Zoom in freshman year to finding all sorts of new opportunities in our new theater today. I'm so grateful for the community we've created in our theater, and as I approach my newest project of student directing Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, I'm only more thankful that I get to continue working with my peers in a new way. In theater, we are exposed to a whole different side of storytelling. We understand characters far more deeply than if we had just read about them because we are becoming them ourselves. There are nuances to storytelling you don't get to see as a reader or writer because you get to portray a familiar story in a way that is totally your own. The show has been no small feat, but the incredibly determined, supportive, and dedicated attitude of our club members has made every step a joy to take. I'm constantly inspired by my fellow performers, so it is no surprise that they were my inspiration for taking on this show. After having watched SLO High senior Lindsay Smith direct Much Ado About Nothing last year, I decided that directing was something I wanted to try, and the immediate and overwhelming kindness and support of the rest of the club made me believe we could create some incredible production, and now here we are. Sense and Sensibility will open on May 19th, and we can't wait to share our work with everyone. We are so lucky to have this incredible community around us, and it's been truly wonderful watching everyone, including myself, grow as performers, people, and friends. We are sharing an engaging, entertaining, and informative form of art, and we are so lucky to have a campus that embraces our work so enthusiastically. Thank you very much for your time.
Now to talk about the SLO High Film Festival, the amazing Gavin Wren.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gavin Wren. I'm a senior at SLO High and a CT pathway completer of our film and video technology department. I'm pretty excited to be here. I've heard the great tales by Informaticus in our ASB meetings. It's a pretty great place. We had the wonderful opportunity this year to show our final movies at the Palm Theater, and it was really special. To see a whole town and so many different people come together and to see our movies get played in a real theater was really like it was a dream. It was unreal. Mr. Roper, he gave us 3 months to plan and make our movies, whatever we wanted. We had no limitations other than probably going to like Europe or something. And high schoolers are really good at not planning. We just like to wing it, but this program really burns into your head that that's not going to work in the like the real world, which we aren't there yet, but it really helps you get there. And it was great. We have to plan and prepare and execute what we see, and we can't just wing it because otherwise it'll rain and you can't go out to the sand. That's what happened to me. And then we all had a great community. We worked together. I would act in one film and then, record a shot for somebody else for another and then go work on my own. And we were really tight knit group. And so when we were all there at the Palm, it was super special. Mr. Roper at the Palm, he said that him and Mr. Heimerdinger, our two digital media teachers, are trying to build something great here at SLO High. And what I've witnessed and been a part of this year was something even more than that. It changed my future. I'm going to college for film now, and I was not even thinking about that a year ago. And I can't wait to see what they continue to do with this program and what great communities will be built and dreams will be lived. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our final student speaking today is Clara, and Clara's been in the news. She's on KSBY. She got into 20 colleges, including all these Ivy Leagues. And so it's a good story to tell, of course. But one thing that I enjoyed was watching her be interviewed. And she did this beautiful 20-minute interview where she talked about gratitude and the people who have inspired her and her parents and her teachers and Latin and all these great things. I hope I'm not stealing any of your speech. And it was just so great. And so I thought you would all enjoy having Clara be here with you for a bit.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I would just like to preface this by, again, a very big thank you to everybody here willing to listen to me. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Dickinson for inviting me to speak tonight and to share a little bit of my experience as a SLO High senior and as a graduate of the public system here at San Luis Obispo Coastal. I'd like to thank my friends and family and most of all my educators, because as I realized this entire journey, and really all of us were educators in a way or another. And so I'm very grateful for that opportunity to have experienced all of that here in SLO. So I've learned throughout this journey, this long month of travels, having visited all these colleges that I was admitted to, that education and educators are really the force compelling our world around us. At every school that I visited, the students that really stood out to me the most were the students from public schools, just like me, because I found that they were the most compelling, the most courageous, the most determined, yet humble at the same time, because we're in this community together. So I'm very grateful to have gotten that experience. And I know that I'm going to be leaving SLO High as a product of that experience and as a representative for our little community here and for everybody in San Luis Obispo. I'd also like to touch upon the fact that my success, I would like to attribute it to the bilingualism that I was able to garner going to Pacheco Elementary School, going to Laguna Middle School, and taking that one dual language class, the history class, and then coming here to SLO High School, completing the AP Spanish and Latin classes. So I will say that bilingualism, that biculturalism has been really key in my ability to attain this success in where I will be going. Because I am very doubtful that without it, I would not have achieved admittance to institutions such as like Harvard, Princeton, and my new home, which will be Yale in the fall. I will also like to end this by saying that as a Latina and as a Chicana student in this community, it has been hard at times, but I will say that I've received amazing support and that I would like to serve as inspiration for future generations of Latinos and Chicanos who are growing up in this community, which can feel a little bit ostracizing at times, but we find each other and we lean upon each other. And I would just like to serve as a beacon for the next generation coming, because I hope that they will achieve things that I will never get to. And honestly, that's the point of an educator, to really see the potential in the future in the generations after us. So thank you so much. And I'm very happy to be here tonight.
That is our sharing. I think we had 5 minutes. We took a little bit more than that. So thank you for indulging. But, we are more than students and teachers and grades and graders. And I think you see that by meeting our incredible students. So it's awesome. So
You're
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your stories. You know, you all have enjoyed a unique perspective and experience in your years in San Luis Coastal, and it's wonderful to hear your stories. So thank you so much. Ms. Dober Drew.
All of you are amazing. I just want to say the one that was called amazing, I'm sorry, with the black shirt on. What's your name again? Gavin. Oh, just like the governor. Oh, well. So I wanted to say that your story is a real good testimonial to the success of the CTE program we have here, where you didn't know before you got in and involved in a real life situation that you would be doing what you're going to do, presumably, maybe not, for the rest of your life, right? And you found that out because you had a hands-on experience and sort of an apprenticeship, would you call it? Yeah. So I'm so thankful that you're a testimonial to the success of the CTE program, because it's an awesome program, isn't it? Thank you.
Mr. Clausen.
I just wanted to thank you all for presenting. And also, one thing I just noticed is how much the success that you guys have had is student-led and student-driven. And I wanted to commend the whole administration and all the teachers at SLO High for creating an environment that allows that. But your stories are all just really impressive. And it's great as a sophomore, you're starting Creative Writing Club. And I personally am really excited to see your work, Charlie, in May. So.
Thank you again. Thanks for coming. Yeah. So stick around if you wish. We have more student presentations to follow. We really appreciate you coming this evening. Dr. Prater.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Sheffer, and good evening, board. The legend of Atticus Fenton. I can just envision how that plays out at school. So well done, Atticus and Alana. Thank you for joining us tonight. There's a theme, I think, that runs through this evening, as well as I would like to believe our district in general, and that is we care about what students have to say. And as educators, as people who are drawn to public education in particular, we understand the importance of listening to our students, especially as it relates to the experiences that they have each day. And so we've done that in evidence tonight with Mr. Dickinson. And you can see the evolution of how students are honored and taken seriously. Tonight, I'd like to reinforce that with a presentation tonight around student goals developed by our student senators. And our student senators, for those of you that don't know, have been meeting throughout the year. We've met this year 7 times. 7 times. Usually it's about from about 9 in the morning till about lunch. And in those days, we meet with over approximately 80 students representing our elementaries, high schools, middle schools, and high schools. And we've been at this now for 7 years. 7 years. The Student Senate is a California Golden Bell program, and it's also a national Magna Award program. So it's recognized as quite important and valuable. And I'm proud of that, but I'm really, really proud of our student senators and what they have to say. They've been working hard all year, working with our site leaders, that some of whom are here tonight. And it would be by itself, this just hearing from our student senators, you could spend all evening, but we're going to condense that tonight in a very hybrid format. And so we've invited some of our student senators here tonight to speak to you. We will hear from, I think as of now, we just have one elementary student coming, and she will, and we'll begin our evening with her sharing from Sinsheimer. And I think you will find Maggie to be extraordinary. And then we're going to hear from representatives from our 2 middle schools and 3 high schools this evening. And I think what you'll find is that what they have to say, there are very strong commonalities that run through them. What I'd like to do, Mandy, if you could go to the next slide, what I'd like to do is talk about how we framed out these particular goals that get folded into our single plans for student achievement at the site level. In other words, this is not just a casual activity among students. No, this has a serious component to it. And that is, we're asking our students to actually speak with their teachers and their principals and have a serious conversation about the things they think are most important. And we have 3 building blocks that we work within. And these are leadership and influence, engagement and relationships, safety, emotional and physical. And you'll see the goals that our kids have discussed and developed running through these 3 core blocks. And then I thought I'd take a moment and just kind of go through those themes. So Mandy, could you, the next slide? Of the multiple feedback loops from our survey called Youth Truth, which we're taking by thousands. 92% of our students took this survey in October. We had several hundred members of our staff take the survey, as well as parents, 3rd grade through 12th grade. And from that feedback in the survey that we received in November, the students have been hard at work evaluating that feedback, narrowing it down to core themes. And within those core themes, this is what we discovered. In the first theme, the things that we discovered is that what's important to our students in this district is that their learning is engaging and challenging. But it's not just enough to be engaging and challenging. They believe that the teachers themselves need to be committed to a positive relationship with the students. The magic sauce is there. And that is because the kids, we all identify with a caring person, someone who really cares about the content and the person that they're trying to convey that content to. And that's the theme we saw running through all the feedback, the survey feedback. The second theme is the importance of every student having a trusted adult that they can go to on campus. And I can't overstate that. It was said time and time again. There's a question on Youth Truth survey that says, is there a caring, trusted adult that you feel you can go to at school? And we in San Luis Coastal tend to fare fairly well. However, in this particular question, we have work to do. Now, I believe we have caring adults. I know we have caring teachers and adults on our campuses. But if students don't feel that way, we have a problem. And I believe that in that second theme, that's the work. That's the work, is to convey to students that I'm here for you. And then the third theme is a sense of belonging for every student. And we know from the work we've done with the Sandy Hook Promise program, they've done a massive study into what really creates safe schools. And we know that's at the top priority for all of us. And what the students are saying is that safety to them isn't about fencing. It's not about locks. To them, it's about knowing that they feel like they belong at that school. And so when you merge these 3 themes together, what you see is there's a very important element between the educator, the student, and the perceptions that go with that. And we have a remarkable opportunity to capture that and do some incredibly important work to engage our students through a caring, thoughtful environment where trusted adults are ubiquitous on campuses. And that's what we're after. tonight you're going to hear variations of these themes running through the goals. So we'll start with Sinsheimer Elementary. And I got to tell you, young Maggie here, she is a sixth grader at Sinsheimer Elementary, and she boldly started coming to our student center meetings this year. And we oftentimes ask students to stand up and speak. And there's a podium, there's a microphone, and this young lady, she just went up, goes right up and lets you have it. So I'm so impressed with her. So Maggie, would you like to share what Sinsheimer's working on this year? Let's hear it from Maggie.
Hello, I'm Maggie Cross, and I will be representing Sinsheimer Elementary's 2022 SMART goals. First, I will go over the goals and then provide details about each one. SMART goal number 1 is to improve student motivation towards academic achievement through more hands-on projects and challenging schoolwork. SMART goal number 2 is to improve student relationships and connections between students and staff on campus, creating a more inclusive and accepting environment. SMART goal number 3, improve students' emotional safety on campus. Okay, first SMART goal is leadership actions and influencers. Specific, improve student motivation towards academic achievement through more hands-on projects and challenging schoolwork. Measurable, Youth Truth survey data around motivation and achievement will go up in the 2023 to 2024 school year. Academic achievement will increase overall, with more students showing academic growth throughout the school year. Assignable, more time and opportunity to reflect and celebrate student growth in classrooms. Opportunities for students to recognize their peers who are doing awesome things in and out of the classroom. Talk to teachers about including more challenge problems, hands-on activities, and real-life relevant projects throughout the school year. We will use the Innovate Lab not just for science, but for other subjects as well to tie in hands-on academic learning. Realistic. This will help students feel more engaged and part of their classroom, not only improving academic performance, but also building more of a connection to school and teachers. Time-based. This will happen throughout the 2023 to 2024 school year. Some recommended actions include opportunities for teachers to learn about different ways to use the Innovation Lab and integrate the innovation tools into different subjects. We will introduce student stinger shoutouts that are student-given recognitions for peer-to-peer recognition for positive behaviors and actions on campus. Our second SMART goal is based on engagement and relationship building. Specific, improve student relationships and connections between students and staff on campus, creating a more inclusive and accepting environment. Measurable, we will see an increase in connection and campus relationships based on the 2023 to 2024 school Youth Truth survey results. Assignable, create a monthly mental health / relationship check-in form that counselors, teachers, and administration review and determine specific student supports needed. We will also make connection and relationship on campus a focus during staff meetings so that teachers can bring this focus back to their classrooms regularly. Realistic. During our focus group meeting, this topic came up a lot and stood out to students as one of the most important needs on campus currently. Time-based. We will present this information to staff and teachers at the end of the 2022-2023 school year and implement these actions during the 2023-2024 school year. Some recommended actions are to share it with staff about goals. Student senators share out with students about the goals and importance of connections on campus and plans to improve them in the coming school year. We will also create the check-in form and share it with students and staff at the end of this school year to get baseline data from 2nd through 6th grade. Final SMART goal is about safety. Specific, emotional safety increase among students on campus. Measurable, increase the number of students who can identify a safe adult they can rely on and confide in on campus, and also a safe peer or peer group they feel comfortable confiding in based on 2023 to 2024 Youth Truth results. Assignable, bring up the conversation during class meetings about trusted adults and get students to start thinking about who their trusted adult might be. Include conversations and student stories about trusted adults and how they've helped students during class meetings. Realistic. This helps students feel safe on campus by ensuring they have someone on campus to confide in and check in with. Time-based. This work will occur during the 2023-2024 school year. Recommended actions. Bring up the conversation during class meetings about trusted adults and get students to start thinking about who their trusted adult might be. Include conversations and student stories about trusted adults and how they've helped students during class meetings. Our plan to present to staff is tomorrow at the staff development meeting. Thank you.
I have a question.
Maggie, really well done. Could you come up? There might be some questions for you.
So Maggie, first of all, beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 6th grade.
You're in 6th grade. So then that leads to my question, which is, you won't be at Sinsheimer next year. Who will be following up to make sure, since you have measurable goals, to make sure that they're being met?
The student senators next year who are currently in 5th grade will be chosen when they're in 6th grade, and Ms. Miller will follow up with them and go over these goals again to follow up on it.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that that follow-up would occur.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's wonderfully done. Thank you very much. Yes, Rob.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Did you mention class meetings?
Yes.
Okay, so you have those in your class?
Yes. We have SEL time that is regular for all classes. So that's also administration is putting in more rules about having class meetings to talk
Very,
about stuff.
very good. Thank you.
Mr. Unger.
So this is a question for you, and perhaps Ms. Miller would like to weigh in on this as well. So one of the things that Dr. Prater mentioned was that these SMART goals would be included, some of the SMART goals at least would be included in your school site plans, which, really drives how the important goals of the school. How do you see those being incorporated into your school site plans?
I think they'll be put in on a certain page or like available to look at.
I think too, so one of the things I presented at the very beginning of the school year this year, some of you were there, some of you weren't on the board yet, but all about how our focus on site is really that SEL piece and how do we build in those connections for our students. And so some of the things that we did put in our site plan this year were things like recess coaches and that time with our counselor and making sure that groups were happening. And as Maggie shared, the class meetings and making sure those were happening in every classroom. So those are things we'll definitely keep in our plan for next year. And then as we start planning this year, thinking about next year as well in our MTSS team and what other behavioral and SEL supports that we can put in that are really going to strengthen some of the things Maggie shared about here, including that adult connection and making sure that everyone has a safe person on campus that they can go to.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Maggie. That was great.
Well, there's more to come. Now, we're going to jump to middle school. Laguna Middle School's representatives have to leave following this presentation to go to honor the redesignated students from their school in a celebration for which I believe Mr. Minert told me there were upwards of 70 redesignated students. So it's super exciting. And so I'd like to, all right, okay, I got a little overzealous. 22 students, 70 people honoring that. And how cool is that? So we'll start with Laguna, then we'll go to Los Osos Middle School, and then we'll move up to the high schools. Laguna Middle School, please.
Hello, my name is Natalia Ugarte. I'm a 7th grader at Laguna Middle School. Hi, my name is Natalia Hernandez. So we have 3 different SMART goals, one based on relationships, another based on academics, and our last one is based on culture. And so for our relationships, we want staff and students that build a relationship to be beyond the academics and beyond like anything, because
you spend a lot of time with your students and in classrooms. So having that relationship is a big part of being at school. So this will be going both to the students and staff because this isn't a one-way road. It's a two-way road, and both the student and the teacher have to be contributing to have that strong relationship. We want we asked our students what like how they're doing with their teachers, like what are their relationships like in one of our surveys, and they said that they were pretty well, but not how we want them to be. We want them to be where they remember those teachers and just to like go to them for a trusted adult. So we are wanting to like take action now and start talking to our teachers and having staff meetings to talk about why it's important for them to have a relationship with them, and also showing the students on our advisory sides why it's important as well. And we want this to be start right now and keep going till like years and years come for Lancers. And that's it for the relationships and for the academics. We want teachers to better engage student learning through using activities and collaboration time in class, and provide support for students so they are able to meet the high academic expectations. We want students to feel encouraged to learn and to be to when they're taking that youth truth survey to say that, oh, we feel confident in our learning, and go places, which is one of the most important things that I know the Slow Coastal wants to do for students to go places. Some of um, some of our recommended actions is during the summer or during like school time to take teacher work or to take teachers and give them some training on how to recognize students behaviors and mindsets so that they can know that if a student isn't doing well in a class that they should help them out, and how feelings and emotions can affect their learning so that they can do better, and so we can get higher test scores and that higher academics. Another thing is hands-on activities. Not all students can learn by just hearing and by just looking at the teacher write down things. They learn by doing hands-on activities. So we want teachers to include more of those hands-on activities so that they can learn better. I know like kindergartners, they like add their little macaronis and all that stuff. And that's how they learned. And they don't do that as much as in like middle school and all that stuff, because they think, oh, that's too childish. But we all learn when we're adding things, like with our tables, using those like hands-on activities is one of the things that we want to include more for our teachers.
And our third SMART goal about culture is that when students get disciplined, they often feel singled out. And staff will seek to communicate in a positive way to help educate students on this to improve relationships and positive outcomes from these interactions. What we hope that teachers will do is know how to discipline their students while maintaining and building these relationships and culture. And it's all about that students getting disciplined and being aware of that.
Thank you. Yeah. If we have time for a quick question, we know you need to get going. Mr. Banfield?
Well, I'm hoping this is a quick question. How can you tell when a teacher is concerned about you? What does that look like?
Well, we know that when teachers actually pay attention is when they come up to us and ask us questions about like just noticing our everyday behavior and seeing if like we're not doing the work or we're not putting that much effort, they know that something's up. Because I know my trusted adult at our school, they always ask me like, hey, are you good? Are you okay? Like they ask questions, and even when I'm like when I'm out like and I feel good or anything, they still ask me, and I feel like teachers asking every day, asking those questions to all students, or maybe just making a Google form of asking the students about what's happening, then they can recognize the behavior changing or anything that happens in their life. And I feel like that would make a big impact for students.
Adding on to that, basically just doing check-ins to see like how you're doing with these.
Thank you. And now you have a wonderful celebration to go be part of. It's a big night, right?
Well done, girls.
Thank you, Mr. Minor.
So our next middle school is Los Osos Middle School, and they're joining us via Zoom tonight. So let's see, Ms. Contreras, are you there?
Hi, yes, we are here. I have Ayan Patel and Sunny Stoneman with me.
Well, welcome. This is our school board meeting where we've just now heard from our elementary group and our Laguna Middle School friends. And now you're up, Ms. Contreras. So please take it from here.
For our first SMART goal, we have increase engaging activities inside and outside the classroom. So we want to increase student engagement in the area of academics and school spirit. So we want to host more activities outside the classroom, as well as encouraging teachers to take a more hands-on approach to learning will provide that engagement. Middle school is a time to develop the sense of self and identity. With so much time being spent at school, it's important that there be class competitions for academics, such as IXL tournaments, lunch activities, spirit weeks, and after-school dances that build community and engage on multiple levels.
For our second SMART goal is to increase fair discipline and behavior expectations. And behavior expectations and discipline would be fairly implemented at a school-wide and classroom level that work to support students. This would include a revision of the student handbook, specifically at the dress code, a school-wide implementation and education of behavior expectations with lessons taught and advisory, and the restorative approach to further grow students' interpersonal and intrapersonal skills.
And our last SMART goal is increase inclusive words and actions. So inclusive words and actions provide safety that is deserved for all. In order to decrease the use of slurs and other inappropriate and hateful language, we need to educate students and staff on how to do better and be better, starting with celebrating our differences. We believe that students will only stop using hate language and slurs if they learn and understand the negative impact. And that's all we have for our goals.
Are there any questions from the board for our friends at Los Osos Middle School?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you joining us. Well done. So I believe we also have Pacific Beach High School on Zoom tonight. Ms. Dawson, will you bring on Ms. Cooper? And for those of you that do not know out in the crowd, Pacific Beach High School is our continuation high school. It is a previously acknowledged state model continuation high school. We're very proud of the work they do there, and I think you'll see that in their goals as well.
Good evening to our wonderful board members and Dr. Prater. I have the pleasure of introducing our student, Analia Marietta. She goes by Lulu. Lulu, you there?
Oh, can you guys hear me? I'm calling because my computer's not working.
Can hear you.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So our first SMART goal is team building activities. And we would like to foster positive peer interactions through team building activities, such as minute-to-win-it games, outdoor sports such as pickleball and scavenger hunts. The goal is to create common social norms to bring new students into the fold and prevent exclusive cookies. Our second SMART goal is enhanced field trips. Field trips for cross-curricular opportunities for the whole school and course-specific local field trips using our school van. We have already successfully completed a field trip to Hearst Castle with the whole school and field trips to construction sites in our construction class. Our goal is to plan at least 2 whole school field trips each year and at least 1 local field trip per class. Our third SMART goal is inclusivity for LGBTQ plus students. During the intake interview to PBHS, the principal will ask each new student their preferred pronouns: he, him, she, her, they, them, and will share each student's preference with school staff. Staff will then establish school norms by addressing new students with their preferred pronouns. Student feedback will be reflected in the Youth Truth survey results and from a follow-up survey in the spring.
Lulu, thank you. That was really, really well done. And we appreciate you joining us even on your phone. Thank you. Ms. Cooper, is there any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Just that we appreciate the continued support of our board. Thank you for always advocating for our school. And as you all know, the staff and principal, we love our job and we love our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. And I'd like to move now to Morro Bay High School. Please come on up.
Yeah.
You got it.
I'm Krupa. I'm from Marbay. I'm here to share the SMART goals that we made this year. And our first one is to ensure that our students feel informed and prepared for college and career opportunities following graduation. This year, through the Youth Truth survey, we found out that our seniors felt a little unprepared while going through their college process. And we did have counselors reaching out to them, but they felt that they could use more support. And we also realized that a lot of our 10th graders felt unprepared for college as they moved on to become juniors. And what we wanted as a student body is more support from our counselors, whether that be to advertise the resources that they have to offer, and we also know that our counselors have a lot on their plate, so that could also mean bringing in more people to the counseling department to help them be more accessible to our students. Our second goal is that teachers connect curriculum to real life, projecting passion about their subject matter and life experiences, and our students and teachers build relationships through this interaction. So this goal is more relevant towards engagement and topics being shared and taught in class. We wanted our teachers to take time aside to discuss events that are occurring in the world today or historical events that have already occurred and connect that to whatever subject they may teach. And this would help prepare students for the world outside, just more outside the academic class. And it would also create a cultural awareness in our community and in our school environment, which would make our school more welcoming to others. And our last goal also revolves around the same topic, but it's more geared towards personal connection between teachers and staff and our students. Dr. Prater was talking about how our district has been focusing a lot on safety, but physical safety is not going to just cut it. We also wanted to ensure that our students have emotional safety at our schools. And this would mean that they have at least one adult to talk to at our school and that they can connect to. And we know all our teachers are very caring,
but we also wanted to make sure that all our students felt that connection enough for them to be able to go up to those teachers and discuss their concerns. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sensing a theme here. Thank you so much. Thanks very much.
Any questions for Krupa? Morro Bay High School, Krupa, you're leading the way. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, our final school presentation is San Luis Obispo High School. Please come join us. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Chloe Elliott, and I'm a freshman here at SLO High.
My name is Sophia Muhammad Ali, and I'm a junior, and we're from SLO High.
So our goals kind of take on a slightly different view from a majority of the other schools, and we're focusing more on what students can do here. At SLO High, our goals fall under a 2-year cycle, and so we want to ensure that our goals are implemented throughout the entire community through the efforts of all the people here on our campus. And additionally, like a reason for this 2-year cycle was upon analysis of our youth truth data, we noticed that there really hasn't been that much significant change from last year. And so we really just want to build upon our previous goals and ensure that we do see positive change in our future data and just a more positive environment overall. And so last year we were kind of on the first year of our 2-year cycle, and we were centering more around what the staff could do. And so this year our teachers and staff are still doing intentional work to make more progress towards the goals that we presented to them last year. And so rather than giving them more completely new goals this year, we are utilizing this cycle to give teachers more time to work on them. And rather we are in the second year of the 2-year cycle, we are focusing on the students. And so the main general goal of what we want to accomplish has remained generally the same, except now we are centered more on what students can do in order to bring about a level of accountability to all the members on our campus.
And so for our first goal, which is tied to leadership and influence, we will encourage students grades 9 through 12 to prioritize active participation and engagement in our classes to ensure that we are aware of the relevance and importance of the work we do. In order for us to be better prepared for college careers and overall future success outside of the classroom and after high school. And so how can we do this? Well, to start off, we believe that educating students on what active participation and engagement actually looks like and what effect it has on our learning is important to this goal because students need to know the relevance in order to succeed. We also think that facilitating discussions among students can be powerful in helping build that foundational knowledge related to college careers and future success because learning from peers and collaborating with peers can be so much more meaningful. And finally, for this goal, we plan to distribute phone pockets to every classroom to help better engage students in class. For our second goal, which relates to engagements and relationships, we want to increase the feelings of belongings on campus by building relationships among students, by creating more opportunities for students to share about their personal journeys and experiences. And in terms of action, we've already started. A project we launched last week called Spotlight on You is where we highlight different cultures and backgrounds of our students in hopes of increasing the mutual understanding and support of each other. In honor of, we started this project with the MSA in honor of it being Ramadan, which is a holiday for for the Muslim students. And this week, we hope to highlight the Mecha Club or Mexican culture this Friday in honor of it being Cinco de Mayo. Until the end of the school year, we hope to continue highlighting different cultures to hopefully result in a culture fest, which will kind of let the students on campus experience these cultures that we're highlighting for themselves.
And then our third goal is tied into the building block of emotional and physical safety. And we want students, we want students that will contribute to a positive school environment and improve the physical and emotional safety of SLO High's learning community by committing to engaging in respectful disrespectful behaviors in words and in actions on campus. And so what are our action plans for this? Well, the overarching action that we want students to implement is really just being mindful of their own behavior, which includes calling out any disrespectful behavior they might see from other students, even in a public setting, like in a classroom in front of peers, as this is something that we tend to see not happen all that often just because of an overlying fear of being the one to speak out and being the one to who is different in a classroom of so many people who are just staying silent. And so we really just want to create awareness of respectful and caring language to ensure that students will apply this to their own habits and just really understand the magnitude of their own actions as well as that of those around them, and how we all really just need to be aware of what we are saying and what we are doing to create a positive environment where everyone feels safe just being themselves and like they can express who they really are. And so that concludes our presentation on our SMART goals. And
Thank you so much for listening to us and about our plans for the future.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I really appreciate your cultural awareness video. I watched it. I look forward to seeing more. I learned things about Ramadan I was not aware of. And yeah, it was great. So keep up the good work. And thank you both for presenting to us tonight. Mr. Clausen?
Yeah, I had a question that Krupa brought up a similar topic just about emotional safety and emotional well-being, and I really admire that you guys have incorporated that into your SMART goals. But I was curious both your take and maybe Krupa's on how are we doing? Like how would you characterize the current state of the world in terms of emotional safety?
I feel like as it stands, we could be doing a lot more than we are. I feel like there is a lot of like division just between different groups of people because they don't quite understand where the other people are coming from because of such different backgrounds. And I feel like in order to increase this emotional safety and this just feeling like we can be who we are, we just really need to just push more of an accepting culture of people who maybe act different or practice different things, because there's just really kind of a level of not understanding who other people are, and therefore like a level of disrespect comes from that.
Yeah, just adding on to what you said, one of our goals is just creating cultural awareness in our school. And we would do this by having teachers have conversations about different cultures and different events that occur all over the world. And by doing this, we hope that we can raise awareness and educate those students at our school, and that would lead to a better kind of supporting environment that we can nurture at our school.
And I think like what they both said is normalizing like different people, you know, like because right now, like if you stand out, you actually just stand out, especially in like San Luis Obispo. So it's like important that we normalize the different people and like create like the appreciation and the value and respect for one another.
Thank you for being student leaders in creating emotional safety.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Unger.
So it sounds kind of one of the themes I'm getting from high school students as well as I think the middle school students is that you want your teachers to engage in some difficult conversations with you. Is that true?
Yeah, I definitely feel like we want, instead of like just having like the set curriculum just about what we are supposed to be learning in our classes, we kind of want to have discussions about topics that more pertain to what's happening in the world, and that we've like to just kind of nurture more deep conversations about things that like maybe mean a lot to students and that can help them learn about different aspects of what's happening.
So if you were to give a teacher some advice about this, what would it be? Because, you know, sometimes they're really difficult conversations that need to happen, but teachers feel, you know, if I talk about this, somebody will, could complain. I don't know if my students really want to hear this, those kind of questions. I might hurt somebody's feelings. How do you think, what advice would you give to your teachers?
Personally, what I've noted for myself is like in one of my classes, culinary, we have like a slideshow every day. But like today, for an example, the teacher had like a poster with like a girl with the hijab on. And like personally that made me super happy. I pointed it out to my friends and I was like, that's amazing. The teacher actually included like other cultures. And then like this is similar for other teachers as well, especially in classes such as English or history, when you can like make it your warm up. You can be like, my English teacher, he has a different warm up every like day. And sometimes like he'll include like an article, a recent article about like a current event, and then he'll dedicate like 10-15 minutes to like us reading it and then discussing it and what our thoughts are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything else? Oh, okay. All right, thank you so much. Thank you all.
So Dr. Prater, what we heard was that the student senate goals, we hope to see those implemented via the site plans, right? And I know that we're heading into our third year of our LCAP cycle. How do you see the student senate's input influencing our LCAP as we look at a new LCAP next year?
Yeah, that's a great question. Many people believe the LCAP somehow has its origins at this top place and it's dropped down upon the sites. But in reality, to answer your question, Mr. Unger, which is an important one, the best and most profound understandings come bottom up. And so when we look at our LCAP, especially next year in our third year, the board has done a phenomenal job of seeking input from the sites, from the parents, from the students. You've incorporated not just in the site goals, what the students have had to say over the last several years. Now they're being reflected in the district level LCAP goals under each of those themes, okay? And also this school board, and the reason I'm so thankful that you've given the students this level of commitment and time is that you speak to these statements and goals in your annual board workshop. And you do that by looking at those driving goals of achievement, wellness, and intervention. And when you do that as a school board, you embody this feedback. So it's coming from the bottom, meaning the site, up to the district level through the LCAP and through the annual board priorities every year. So I'm super proud to tell you that this district has made not just the LCAP, but its annual priorities part of what the students are suggesting we need to do. And I just see us getting better and better at it. There's a reason we use those building blocks, because those building blocks are part of what the board does. They look through those frames every year when they decide to approve a budget and adopt their driving goals and priorities. And so the student voice is a major driver in that. Another group that you'll hear from, or committee that you'll hear from next after this, is the district equity team. And those two are part of this. So I hope that answered your question. Bottom up, not top down.
Mr. Buckland.
Well,
hello, Mr. Buckman.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's been a long time, I guess 7 years with the Student Senate.
That's correct.
It's amazing. And I know you've gotten a lot of kudos locally and from the board and from our fellow school boards. But I think when I was there this last time, I think the real biggest compliments are starting to come. So there was observers from another school district. I can't, Mojave, do you remember that?
Yeah, Western Placer Unified School
Western
District.
Placer Unified. And as I walked around, and they brought what, like 6, 7 people? 9 people, including 2 students. What a compliment to you. And they were just like wowed. And so, I mean,
well,
you're gonna have impact on the whole state. And by the way, it's you guys that wowed them, not Dr. Prater. So thanks for that.
I will say to you, it's really, this group of students inspires me. And our board joins in observing these student senate meetings on rotation, so we don't violate the Brown Act. And I know that you know what we have here, and it really should be happening in every school district in this country. It's that important, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for coming, students.
Jennifer, if I could just really quick,
Yes.
I just shout out to the kids tonight. What I loved, I think most about this presentation today were the kids taking action. It's not just up to the teachers to do it. You know, they're creating the creative writing club. They're doing the play. They're producing things for the television show, right? Like because at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the kids to make a difference, right? For the students to treat each other the way they need to be treated. And so by you guys going after the students to do this, I think is going to make that resounding, impact long-term. So just fantastic job.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah, it's really wonderful. Our next item is our equity.
Yeah, district equity leadership team. Thank you very much. Yeah, we sure do. Let's see here. And we are fortunate to be in year 5 of the district equity leadership team, and we've accomplished a lot over that period of time. Let's see here. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So go back here to the start. So this is year 5 of the district equity leadership team. And yearly, we come in front of the board to present recommendations on things that the school district could do through the lens of equity and to promote diversity, equity, and inclusivity throughout our district. And in tandem with Common Ground Advisory Task Force, Student Senate, district equity leadership team is doing some important work with the district. And we have 2 longtime members of the team with us here tonight, Chelsea Smiley and Vanessa from Hawthorne Elementary, and they are going to share with you our recommendations from the district equity leadership team. Chelsea, Vanessa.
Thank you for having us. Chelsea Smiley, Elementary Curriculum TOSA. It's hard to follow kids. So thank you for engaging with us. We won't be long, but I think you'll see a lot of connections. Oh, can I do it? Okay. So the district equity leadership team, our biggest goal, and I want to emphasize this, is that all students meet rigorous academic standards. And you could hear it in the presentations that the kids gave before. That's what they want for themselves too. But for the equity team, our focus is to eliminate those educational barriers and provide equal educational opportunities for all students so they can reach those rigorous academic goals. But that is our goal for our equity work. And a quick snapshot of our equity leadership team. It has broad representation. We have staff, we have community. Some of you have joined us. Thank you for those times when you were able to come. And we do have students who come to the team meetings. It is really powerful inside out work. And as Rick said, we've been doing this for 5 years. So it's not any one thing that it is as a result from there. Instead, it is every site is inspired to take a look at what they need and bring issues of equity to the front and center. And you'll hear many people doing different things. We just got an email the other day asking for a book study because one site really felt like they had an issue they wanted to work on. So we see this team as continuing the conversation and encouraging people to continue to reflect on how they can address those academic barriers that are happening on their site. So that's exciting. And as equity and in our team, it's a journey and not a destination. So it will continue to evolve as we evolve in our capacity to do this work. So quickly, the equity leadership team sees our work as acting as a resource for the district. By sharing our best practices, we invite people to come and speak to inspire our members. We conduct listening sessions to get feedback from the district from all across the district, and that's exciting. We really inspire each other. Continue to share that local knowledge and expertise of the members and looking at the equity roadmap recommendations and working with district leadership. Our last meeting, Dan Block came to give us an HR update and Janet Gould came from Student Services to give us an update. And that was awesome to hear from them and get feedback from and share with on our equity goals. And a big focus is to support retention of diverse staff. I think we heard kids kind of speaking to that they wanted representation by being a safe place for all voices to be heard.
Good evening, board. My name is Vanessa Parsons, and I'm an MTSS teacher at Hawthorne. I'm on my tippy toes, so. All right, so I'm going to be just talking about our goals as an equity leadership team from this year. We had 2 focuses this year. The first one being creating trauma-informed schools. And just like Chelsea said, we had the honor of having Janet Gould be a guest speaker to talk about how in a counseling perspective, we're able to support and enhance those supports to address trauma so students can learn, as well as training for and using practices that support student well-being. Okay. Our other guest speaker was Dan Block, who from an HR lens talked about how we are bringing equity as a focus to our hiring and retention process. So in order to do that, we hired a third party, which basically analyzes our hiring process. We again are prioritizing retention of underrepresented staff, and we're trying to continue our effort to expand the diversity of the applicant pool. At our most recent equity meeting, we also had the time to reflect upon our progress. It was our last meeting with our facilitator, Rick Mayfield, and he will be so missed next year. So with that being said, our aspirations for next year. So for our next steps as an equity leadership team, we brainstormed some ideas how we can support our district effort, not only district-wide, but also at sites. As far as our equity plan updates, we talked about that. The Student Senate kind of touched upon the fact how it's really integral to monitor our goals for our single plans for our student achievement. Also update our district equity plan to align with our current goals. And then last but not least, for our progress, we're always revising, we're always refining. And one idea that came up that I thought was awesome was to provide and create a shared vision to measure our progress for next year and kind of inform our priorities based on the data that we have. So very similar to what teachers are expected to do in the classroom as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is such an interesting system that we're using to foster and develop and create additional equity in our schools, and having this this group really helps guide the board and the district as a whole into next steps we need to take to best serve our students. Are there any, Mr. Unger, I see your light on.
So one of the things that we do when we talk about the school site plans is that there are individual goals for each site that each site develops. And then there's sort of a template that the district has expectations and goals that sort of, I think, the district expects. How do you see the equity team's recommendations being included in the school site plans? And do you see them being included in individual school site plans? Does the district have some overarching goals that they like to see included in all of them? You know, tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Great question. Sometimes it's difficult with district initiatives. It's not one size fits all. So when we say to all sites, you know, here's a professional development training that can take place. Sometimes that's apropos and it fits and it works for all sites, but other times it doesn't. And sites have individual needs that pertain to that site in particular. And so, like you heard in the goals that the students came up with, there are some similarities from site to site, but there are also some differences from site to site. So one thing you'll notice in the LCAP is that our work is focused on supporting site goals and helping them to establish goals that they want to accomplish at their particular site, while still providing support from the district level for overarching things that need to occur from a district perspective.
Mr. Banfield.
On the first slide that. Oh, are we there? Yeah.
There we go.
On the first slide, the phrase, eliminate educational barriers was presented.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Again, I would say it looks different at every site. One of the opening activities that sites did 5 years ago, which was really powerful, was put up a continuum of equity practices, from culturally damaging things that are happening in a school to culturally proficient that are empowering of groups of students. And it was really interesting to see what people came up with. So people had time to talk in groups, write down, jot down notes on Post-its, and then post them up as to what things they saw happening at their school that they felt were really empowering, that made students feel included, made students feel comfortable within their school, and things that were kind of in the middle of the spectrum down to things that were really what they thought of as damaging things. I remember things with students' lunches, and if they owed money on their account at school, they had to get an alternative lunch and go up to the office and make a phone call home and remind their parents that they owed money. So things like that we in the past maybe just accepted, oh, it's where we've always done things, to really stepping back and taking a look at what things are keeping kids from being successful in school. Another example would be, it's also in the budget action goals document that will go in front of the board tonight, is the purchase of uniforms at our middle schools and high schools. And rather than just expect families to purchase things like PE equipment, to participate in sports, we're providing those resources because it's an expectation that all students have those things. And so we don't assume that they all can just write a check for, I think Dr. Prater shared the example of $400 or something, one trip to a middle school, just write out a check to the student body for all the different charges. So taking a look at those things through a lens of equity.
Thank you.
You bet.
I appreciate the way things like that, the examples you just gave made me think about the student senators and talking about a safe school environment. So many of these things align, and that's pretty wonderful that the students, the staff, the teachers, were working towards some common goals here. Mr. Clausen.
Yeah, around the goal of bringing an equity focus to hiring and retention, how do you feel that we're currently doing? I mean, if that's a great goal, and I'm wondering your perspective on where we're coming from and
it is,
pursuing
yeah.
that goal.
I think we've made some progress. I think we're going to see it with some of the administrators we're going to hire this year that will be added on next year. It's in all of our conversations. How do we get the pool of applicants? And Mrs. Parsons mentioned that in her portion. How do we increase the diversity in our applicant pool so that we can find the very best candidates that that also look like the students that attend our schools in our district? We're meeting tomorrow with Hanover, and that'll be the outside evaluator that'll come in and kind of take a look at our practices and give us a recommendation on things that we can do to beef that up. Not only hiring, recruiting candidates and hiring, but retaining candidates as well.
Ms. Dober-Drew.
What would Hanover, Mr., Ms. Hanover?
It's a company.
Oh, Hanover.
The Hanover
Company.
Corporation. Yeah, they do lots of different work.
What kind of measures do they use to see whether we're up to, demographics and portions of student backgrounds that are represented?
Yeah.
in the-
We, Mr. Block and I met with several different companies that came up with proposals that to do this kind of work. And Hanover presented theirs, and they take a look at our processes and make recommendations on how we can better recruit candidates in general. They look at our interview process and the hiring process and make recommendations there as well. And they have several other components that they can take a look at. They can do a staff survey, for example, and find a climate survey to find out how staff feel. They can conduct exit interviews with staff who are leaving and find out what their experience was from their perspective and make recommendations based on that. And it's just kind of an outside set of eyes, an experienced outside set of eyes that comes in and looks at our practices and procedures that we have in place and says, here's some areas we think that you could make some improvements.
I'll be interested to hear more about that as it
Absolutely.
goes on.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I ask one more question? Well, so the concept of trauma-informed schools is a really interesting concept to see it as one of the goals. It's a sophisticated, thoughtful goal. I guess my question here is, how do we define that? And is that like a broader term that's already, is trauma-informed a broader concept in the industry? How do we measure that? And I like it as a goal.
Right.
I'd love to hear a little more about it. I
Sure.
guess. Yeah.
Great question. I would say it's very complex. I think trauma-informed is kind of an umbrella term for a lot of the things that we're seeing with the return post-COVID of students back to school. I read an article today in one of the publications that we get as a district on just the impact that we're seeing with students, the behaviors that we're seeing with students. We hear from teachers daily. We need help. We need professional development. We have a different level of behavior within the classroom and within the school campus that we didn't see previously. We need help with how to help kids deal with and process the things that have occurred to them, and also learn how to live together as a group of kids. I think you heard that from the student senators at every single school site. That we want to help kids learn how to treat one another respectfully and use proper language. And so within tier 1, which would be the regular classroom teacher doing instruction, we're having a lot more of those classroom conversations on being civil and treating one another respectfully. And then I think administrators are in the same boat, like help us to navigate what this looks like in terms of restorative practices, keeping kids in school, lowering our suspension rates, increasing our attendance rates. There's so many different facets to it. One of the things that you're going to see in a few moments in the LCAP is increased funding for transitional kindergarten. So we can push in program specialists to help with some of the behaviors that TK teachers are seeing in their classrooms, things that we didn't see before. And especially with 4-year-olds, when students are acting out in these ways, it's indicative of deeper things that are occurring for that student. And so trying to solve those problems and helping families to solve those problems in a multifaceted way and providing resources to staff, I think is really kind of, as I said, it's very complex and we could talk about it for a long time, but those are some examples of trauma-informed things.
Maybe this is something for me to unpack in a deeper discussion, but so to the degree that you've got trauma intersecting with equity, you've got trauma intersecting with COVID and post-COVID, and we're within the context of an equity presentation here. So I'm just curious, what part of equity and trauma are tightly tied together as a goal, and how much is being trauma informed just a universal goal that affects everything we do?
Great. Again, great question. I would say that, there is crossover, and we do see our most impacted groups during COVID were our lower socioeconomic students, our English learner families, And I think, that it speaks to equity. Those students were the most impacted. Those families need support on how to support their children. Oftentimes, we'll call home and the family will say, well, I'm so glad you called because I need help. And, well, can you help me? And it's not the old, I just make the phone call home and mom and dad will take care of it. It's we need to work together as a team to support our most vulnerable students, to learn how to be productive citizens in a school academic environment so that they can learn.
No, thanks. I commend you guys for putting the goal in this context because I think it's just much more actionable and real with that as a specific stated goal. So thanks.
And these were our goals last year, as they mentioned. And as a group, we talked about it and said, we've made a little bit of progress, but we're not there. And so we, rather than just add on another set of goals and some more things that we should do, we said, no, these are really key, really important, and we need to continue them again this year.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming, Chelsea and Vanessa. All right, our next item is 7.01 correspondence. And at the time of the publication of the agenda, there has been no correspondence has been received, no official correspondence. Our next item is public comment. And this time we welcome any public comment on matters of general district interest. If you have an item that you would like to discuss that is on the agenda later, but you don't want to wait, you can speak about that now. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. A timer will appear on the screen. Countdown timer. And at this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone present for public comment. We'll do in-person comment first, followed by online, anyone on Zoom who wishes to make a comment, followed by any written comment. Anyone in person here tonight wishing to make a comment? All right. Anyone on Zoom? And we've received no written public comment. So thank you very much. So we're ready for the superintendent's updates. And I think after we have, we'll do the superintendent's updates, a couple of resolutions, and then we'll be ready for a break. So, Mr. Pinkerton.
Well, it's a busy budget season, if I could spit it out. So a lot going to happen here in the next few weeks. The governor's going to come out with May revise, normally middle of the month. And so it's an interesting time because the governor's promised a lot in his budget in January. The tax revenues aren't coming in quite as expected. So with pushing off the actual when people have to turn in their taxes, there's just a lot of unknowns at this point. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the governor does to keep that, revenue versus expenditure together and get this budget passed. We've made a lot of promises about what he's going to keep. He's potentially running for president, right? So there's just a lot to unfold as this kind of moves forward. For us as basic aid school district community funded, I'm really interested to see if he's going to make those reductions to the art, music, instructional materials grant, which could be upwards to a couple $1 million to the school district, right? That we were supposed to receive in one-time funds, but have yet to receive. Basically received half of those and waiting for the other half, depending on how this decision goes. There's things like ELOPE funding, which we feel like is going to be maintained. That's what helps us with summer school. And for the next year, we'll actually provide free childcare for our students that are English learners, foster homeless youth, and economic disadvantage. So really looking forward to that program in the future. And so it's just going to be an interesting season, right? To see how this all unfolds with the budget, those types of things. For us, we, big picture, you're going to hear a lot about the LCAP from Mrs. Frost, from the team, counseling supports, things that we're adding. We're kind of in this third year of the budget where we have added a lot of things to our budget. expenditures, right? Mainly through COVID funding, one-time funds, those types of things. And so, and I don't estimate us having to change anything for this third year of the budget, but next year is going to be really a critical year where the board will be looking at a new 3-year LCAP. And so, we've talked with Dr. Prater, myself, with the team about starting in the fall to really begin that conversation, right? And so we're not just trying to push it all into 1 month, right? For budget adoption, those types of things, but really having a thorough discussion about how we move forward. Along with that, probably our number one cost is teachers in the classroom. So just finished enrollment today, TK, enrollment with Mr. Block for our elementary sites. And so just, schools now, okay, confirmed how many kindergartners we have, how many TK kids we have, what are the class sizes going to be? What are those, trying to keep combos down. So across the board, still very small class sizes for next year, moving, across the board. Now there, 1 or 2 here or there types of things you might hear about, but overall, very few combination classes, class sizes low. And so again, that's one of those things that will have to be discussed next year as we look at the budget cycle in terms of moving forward, right? But it is nice because now we can actually finish staffing. It was interesting in that TK did not grow as much as we thought it would. So we're only increasing 2 TK classes for the district. And so really Los Ranchos had a big bump. And then Hawthorne, we're adding a second class, but the 2 classes right now are only 14 each. So room to grow. I don't know if people just don't know about TK per se. If they're just set with their preschool program that they're in, maybe, or how that goes. But over time, hopefully that unfolds. And talking with staff and Dr. Prater, I do think next year, and hopefully Measure C will have kicked in and get those TKK rooms ready to roll. We may want to just look at expanding instead of going out 2 months and then having that whole group of parents upset that didn't make the 2 months. We might want to just open it up to everybody next year, right? In terms of that and just, move forward so that every 4-year-old gets that opportunity. And I think that may help kick in and get people going. So again, a lot of work with those efforts with the budget. Kudos to Katie Eklund and her staff, right? A lot going into right now preparing and really helping this LCAP process, putting the dollars behind kind of what we're talking about.
Thank you. Next, we have our educational services update.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of updates for you. Starting with Los Osos Middle School, a couple of big events there over the last couple of weeks. First of all, last week, Tiff Buckman in our special education department hosted a unified sports event on campus. And we've had the unified sports in San Luis Coastal for a few years, but COVID had everything slow down just a little bit. So it was nice to bring this back through Los Osos Middle School. Unified Sports is through Special Olympics, and it promotes social inclusion through shared sports training and competition experience. So we're talking about kids with disabilities and kids without disabilities. TIFF hosted other schools. We had Monarch Grove, CL Smith, Atascadero Unified sent some kids as well, and then Morro High School sent students over. And they were the peer buddies for our students. And then we even had lone students who were helping out. So it was a really wonderful event. And again, that was Los Osos Middle School who spearheaded that. Our kids are actually going up to Paso Robles for something similar in about a month. So another unified sports opportunity. So we love to see this back. We love to see it growing for our students. And then Los Osos Middle School also hosted their Tough 2, which is a 2-mile obstacle course with mental and physical challenges for the kids. So they're not just running 2 miles, and they can walk it and they can jog it and all of those things, but there are also some par course kind of difficulties there. And Mr. Bloom really talks about it being teamwork and cooperation among the students and the staff, and a really good opportunity for his site. And then maybe just one last thing. I called Mr. Dowler. I really wanted to highlight something from Pacific Beach. I haven't talked about Pacific Beach in a while. And he said, Diane, you've talked about the construction program with the board before, but I want you to do it again tonight. It's such a powerful new program on the campus. Says we have 8 kids in a cohort. They're moving on to their second course. They've done field trips, which one of our Pacific Beach students talked about tonight. They've had experts from the field come into their classroom, and he really sees it as a beneficial program for his kids and really hopes over the years to kind of track their progress. Is this a field that they go into? So just a little highlight from PB.
Thank you. Right. Measure D. Oh, I'm sorry.
Diane, do you see the unified sports in lieu of the giant Special Olympics event that we used to have annually?
I don't know if I see it in lieu, to tell you the truth. I don't know where the Special Olympics event is over the last few years, but it really did bring out students from across districts. I know that this is a really wonderful opportunity for that inclusion piece, right? They're competing with kids alongside sometimes from their own schools. So hopefully we'll have both.
Right. Next is Measure D update.
Measure C, Measure D, we have Mr. Bond and myself have been meeting with site architects, going to sites, reviewing kind of the phase 1 projects that the board approved at the May 11th study session. I'll kind of update the board, kind of where we're at, the budget associated with those projects. So very exciting. Of course, yesterday we had a thank you to the board and to the representatives from Morro Bay, to KSBY coming out in the news. They had a great little article on KSBY this morning that kind of highlighted the Morro Bay Cafe and Commons area. I got it, again, kudos to Erin and her staff, because none of that happens. It's great to have these shiny machines, all this other stuff, but somebody's got to cook the food, right? And so, I mean, just fish taco, like really, like fresh fish tacos, and again, the Chinese cuisine that they had, the pizzas going through, I'm watching high school kids eating pesto pizza. It's just, really incredible what she's doing. And for the audience to know, food service, if this is good for the kids to know too, the more kids eat, the more money food service makes, which means they can buy better ingredients and hire more people to work. All the money in food service stays in food service. It's like a business, right? And so they literally can help themselves by eating lunch and breakfast on campus. And so I can't wait to see that just build and grow right over time, what Erin's done since she's been here and moving forward, but the chefs at each school site, again, just the kind of the glow for even the food service workers to take pride in what they're doing for kids, right? It was fantastic yesterday. And again, for the community, thank you, because none of this would happen had they not passed Measure D, right? Had they not passed Measure C. Hearing the kids tonight talk about their theater performances, and that doesn't necessarily happen in the old black box, right? But now we have this beautiful theater to have creative writing project, all those things because the voters approved Measure D, and we were able to make those facilities what they are. And I look forward to, again, making our elementaries, our 2 middle schools, our continuation school, also places that just foster, again, student growth and learning and all those great things. So it was really nice. So thank you.
Right. Next, we have a resolution. Mr. Block.
Yeah, so over the next couple weeks, we get to recognize the outstanding staff within San Luis Coastal. Tonight, Board President, Mrs. Sheffer is going to read a resolution recognizing our staff, both certificated and classified staff. As we heard with the students presenting tonight, they recognize the impact that staff on their campuses have had on their education, the projects they're doing. We are so blessed to have the employees that we do, and tonight's resolution honors them. In the weeks coming, or a couple weeks away, we'll be doing our Employees of the Year and our Teacher of the Year honorees. So tonight, this resolution.
Thank you. I just want to say that I know that we have educators on the board, former educators, and I'm really honored to read this as a parent whose kids experience the wonderful opportunities to go through San Luis Coastal Unified School District 1 from first grade to graduation, the other from kindergarten on. And I think it means a lot as a parent to honor our district employees. So this is resolution number 152223, appreciation of San Luis Coastal Unified School District employees. Whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education believes that every student has the right to access high-quality educational programs to further their academic and personal success. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education believes that quality educational programs are made possible thanks to the dedicated, talented, innovative, and hardworking educators and support staff who have chosen public service as their calling. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education acknowledges the extensive skill and effort required to provide individualized educational opportunities for students. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education further acknowledges the challenges faced by our educators, staff, students, and families during the transition back to in-person learning. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education is fortunate to have a team of skilled educators, staff, and administrators who have taken the time to find creative solutions and provide unwavering support to our students as they return to their classrooms. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education is proud to recognize the dedication and commitment to excellence displayed by the team throughout even the most challenging of times. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education believes that the San Luis Coastal Unified School District team serves as a model of public service and pride for our community. And whereas the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education believes that such a team deserves the gratitude, respect, and recognition from the board, students, parents, and the entire community. Now therefore be it resolved that the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Education proudly proclaims the month of May 2023 as Employee Appreciation Month to include the California Day of the Teacher on Tuesday, May 9, the Week of Classified Employees, May 21 through 27, and recognition of support and administrative staff. In making this declaration, the board honors the San Luis Coastal Unified School District team for dedicating their lives in service to promoting the success of our children and our community. Adopted the second day of May 2023 by the Board of Education of the San Luis Coastal Unified School District by the following roll call vote. Let's start at one end. Mr. Clausen. Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Ms. Dover Drew.
Yes.
Ms. Roger.
Yes.
We did this without a motion. We're just adopting the resolution, so it's not quite as formal as we should be. Ms. Dawson, will you accept this? Okay, is there anyone from the public who wishes to address us on this? I'm really glad to say that I'm fortunate to still know some of the teachers in our districts as teachers of my children, one of whom is present in the room, standing in the back, and how much we appreciate not just the entire team. I really like that the word team was used throughout this. So thank you, one and all. Mr. Pinkerton.
Well, I have
You were
another
so
resolution
excited.
coming forward, right? Yes, it's exciting stuff. So it's kind of strange because in the furniture and equipment budget, I'm asking you to buy four gas powered buses, right?
$1 billion.
But at the other end, right now, tonight, we're going to celebrate the potential of us receiving 10 free electric school buses. So by passing this board resolution tonight, what this does is basically it allows us to replace a current gas powered bus that's old, that's ready to, be stopped using for an electric bus. The issue, and we've talked about this before with the board, the problem is the technology hasn't necessarily caught up with the grants and the funds that are available for climate friendly practices like this, right? So we currently have a bus that we've been awarded, and we're still 2 years waiting because the bus company, it's an issue with the weight of the chassis and the drivetrain. So there's just some issues that they're still, like, the bus manufacturers are facing to get those. So I currently have Mr. Bonin and our lead mechanic calling that Bus West company every day. Where's our bus? Where's our bus? So it's hard to know the impact that this will have long term. Now, that said, I do anticipate that electric school buses are the future, and that we'll be moving this this forward and moving this direction, right? And just like with electric cars, it seems like every month, every year they get better and longer life and those types of things. So all of that said, yes, we are in need of some gas powered buses to replace our current gas fleet, because I can't not have buses until these new electric buses show up, right? So when and if we can move forward, right, and receive these buses, we have plenty of buses to turn in to get these new electric buses. I shared that information on board docs, kind of the age of the fleet, the buses we have. So again, kudos to our staff, to our mechanics, to Philip, to our bus transportation supervisor for going after these grants, for making them available. And we look forward to, again, one day having an all electric fleet that takes our kids around town and moves forward. And hopefully these 10 buses will be here sooner than the current bus we're waiting for.
Can I ask something about those buses? Well, I've always had an electric vehicle since they first came out, but regarding a heavy electric vehicle, isn't there an issue about propulsion going up hills and things like that?
There can be, of course. So it's all part of, I think that's part of the issue that they're facing right now, manufacturing those types of things. That said, there are electric buses being used throughout the state of California, right, in different areas, different places. So I would have to bring the mechanic back to kind of, give you the rundown on.
Also, the charging when they go on long trips.
Yeah.
I guess there's going to be places to do that, hopefully.
So again, those are all things we're concerned about moving forward, right? But for right now, we have enough internal routes within our school district that we feel like we could utilize those buses, on smaller routes throughout town, those types of things, until the battery life engages. I would assume at some point in the near future, all the schools would have electric buses. All the districts would. And so, hey, if we went to Fresno in our bus and took the football team and they played, like, we would be charging our bus in Fresno at that district school, right, while we're waiting for the kids, and then they drive home. So I envision that in the future. I think the state envisions that. I think these grants, these billions of dollars they're putting forward, envision that. I just don't know that the manufacturers have caught up with the vision yet. So it's kind of what we're faced right now. Again, we're not talking about cars, we're talking about buses. So we are already also looking at, just so you know, our white fleet, our smaller vehicles, because that technology is here, right? So I think in the future, you're going to see us bring forward some, electric, smaller cars, vans, things that our computer techs use, our maintenance, our maintenance crew, those types of things in the future that will expand. We have 2 charging stations that came with our free grant from the last one. They finally got the parts here. Issues in China in terms of getting those parts and having them available. So that's moving forward at our transportation yard. So we're going to have kind of what's called a high level charger where you can charge, bigger buses, those types of things, as well as a smaller charger that we can charge, our lighter fleet types of cars. So we're kind of trying to get that background ready to go, right? So that we can expand on this in the future. And then this is also something, I think, more of a car charging station aspect of it. Solar, those are things that we'll be looking at with Measure C at all of our sites as well, how we can incorporate that into some of our new construction.
Mr. Buckman.
Yeah. Hey, first of all, I want to thank you and staff for having the foresight to apply for this.
Yeah.
I do know, while there are old feelings about the ability of buses to move and how fast they climb hills, I would note that the East Coast corridor for Amtrak is now electric. And I'm pretty sure if they can pull the train, we'll figure out a way to get the bus up the hill.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I also, I just don't remember the board voting on each grant that you guys do. So I'm kind of wondering if there's something special. I mean, don't we do for some
I
grants for,
I think we brought them forward for the most part.
I mean, like
Sure.
textbooks and I mean, there's a lot of grants.
I don't know about,
Yeah, I mean, there's other.
I know when it comes to vehicles, we always
Okay, well,
bring
that,
the vehicles
I
forward, yeah.
appreciate that. So I think
Yeah.
this is really good because it forces this public discussion and the spotlight
Yeah.
on the need for this type of
Agreed.
this activity. And I was going to point out, you already said later in the budget, we're about to approve
Yes.
$1 million for diesel fleet. And that I think the 8 of those buses,
I think it's four buses.
Four
yeah.
buses. It's like 50% the cost of an electric bus right now. So it's pretty crazy dynamics. If nobody else,
Hold that thought.
yes.
I'm going to go to the public. Anyone from the public? We're going to do this resolution, right? Anyone wishing to address the board? No, and then
Can I
Mr.
just ask,
Clausen.
when do you think we realistically will get the buses?
I'm hoping we get our first bus within the next year and we can move forward with that. And then in terms of these, as they come in, as they're available, I would assume that we would just start bring them on board as they, as they're available. So, I mean, realistically, it could be a couple of years, which is why you see that I have 4 gas diesel powered buses. Again, if I felt like if we got these right now, we could move forward, I wouldn't even be moving forward with that. But I mean, this could be years in the making, right? And we have, as you can see from the age of our fleet, we do have a handful of buses that need to be replaced. We bus a lot of students in San Luis Coastal, from the coast to Avila to Shell Beach to San Luis. We have schools of choice. We take kids, throughout this community. So transportation is really, when you talk about equity and things like that, it's a big piece of what we do.
Is that understood?
If you have a way of finding better buses, Mr. Clausen, faster, let me know.
So the answer is you're not sure, but as soon as you can get them, you're going to get them.
We'll go after it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How's that for specific? Okay, Mrs.
I would like to
Roger.
give you a better answer.
Mrs. Roger?
Thank you. I understand everything that you said, Mr. Pinkerton. But I am wondering, we're being asked tonight to approve $1 million for these 4 buses. And I'm wondering what the funding source is for that. Do we have a sinking fund for bus replacement?
Do not. But we have a fund, just, that we fund everything in terms of the school district. But what I would tell you is that this is the first year where we're actually receiving transportation fund in the school district, and it's a little over $1 million. So the goal was to maybe utilize those transportation funds, Ms. Roger, and put them towards the purchase of those 4 buses for this year.
That's really fortuitous. How wonderful for us. And then my second question is, and this is kind of an oddball question, but what do we do? How do we surplus buses that we are removing from our fleet? And I ask that because, it's interesting to see how people take old school buses and turn them into tiny homes and such. What do we do with a bus that we are retiring?
So when they are buses that are tied to these types of grants where you're changing them out for an electric bus, they literally take that bus from us. We drive it to them. So this bus will not, they will not be on the road ever again, is what happens with these particular buses through these grants.
Is there a trade-in value?
No, basically it's part of this process where they're going to give you a free electric bus if you give them your old your old car, right? Your old bus in this case. And they dispose of them. I think they crunch them.
And Mr. Pringlton, I have never known how many buses we have in our fleet. Do you happen to know offhand?
So it's right there on the board agenda.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
There's a buses quick look, which kind of has, again, a list of all of our buses. So there's 36 buses. Average age of the bus is 17 years. We have 17 buses that are over 20 years of age. We have 6 special needs buses that are 29 years old. So you can, it has that information there. And then there's also another one, because I knew this would be a question just about overall vehicle master list and kind of thing. So again, kudos to our mechanics who keep these buses running over that amount of time. And I mean, the hundreds of thousands of miles, right, that we put on our vehicles on an annual basis is pretty unbelievable. But there's another sheet too that has the vehicle master list that lists the age or the model of bus and the age as well.
Well, you have totally shamed me. I guess I didn't read far enough down in my agenda item. Can you give me the VIN numbers, please? Thank you, Mr. Pinkerton.
Thank you.
On that, oh, Mr. Banfield.
I was just gonna make a comment. It seems like it's almost a poor charge. You give them the,
yeah.
All right, Mr. Unger.
I just
It's a
want
big bus discussion.
I had to.
Counseling. We're talking about.
I have to point out that one of CSBA's major legislative goals for last year was transportation funding. And the state
Fantastic.
finally passed it.
Yeah.
And school districts throughout California are benefiting.
It's fantastic. It really is.
All right,
Including community funded school districts as well.
Mr. Banfield, did you have anything else? You're like, okay, Mr. Buckman, I will return to you now.
Thank you. So I do sit on the CSBA Legislative Action Committee. There was legislation that Mr. Unger's mentioned, and there's another one that's going through that would push the deadline to replace bus fleets at schools a much tighter window. And we actually took a stand, I think not in opposition, but somewhere along those lines, because the discussion was pretty heavy about none of us can get the electric buses we ordered. Nobody can tell us when we're going to get them. And so to make a tighter deadline, it's going to make things a little tough. So I think, again, it's really smart to go ahead and get these diesel buses. Also, along with Chris, there was also a climate action subcommittee of CSBA. And one of the goals of that was to eliminate diesel buses. So we're getting there. And along with all that, if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution.
We have a motion by Mr. Buckman, a second by Ms. Dobler-Drew. Mr. Buckman. Ms. Dobler-Drew. Yes. Mrs. Roger.
Yes.
Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Thank you very much.
I'll try to get you some better dates in the future.
All right, let's take a break until 7:15 and then we'll come back and tackle our discussion action items. Waiting for our tech people to give the high sign that we're ready to go. All right, I've gotten it. All right, our next item is 10.01. Local Control Accountability Plan Update.
All right, good evening.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Mayfield and I, with a little bit of background on it this evening as well, are here for the fourth time to share with you our progress on the LCAP. You all remember that the LCAP is the Local Control Accountability Plan. We've talked about it so many times as a group, and I think because it is so important to the district, to our staff, to our students, and to our community. We spend an awful lot of time, and there's a lot of resources in this plan. So number 4 of about number 6 or 7 presentations makes a lot of sense. We are to date in a draft form with our document. There's an awful lot of information there, but I do want you to know that it continues to be in a draft form. We will be making minor changes based on feedback, funding, and metrics. Now, I want to remind you, and we've spent a couple of meetings on this, that stakeholder feedback is very, very important as we in San Luis Coastal build our LCAP. And this is a document that I shared with you at our last meeting, but I think it would be important to at least look at it quickly, reminding the board of this document here. This is our LCAP overview. You have it as a link, and you will see that all of our stakeholder input is included on this form, as well as the metrics that we are looking at, as well as our categories for action. And then again, I always want to pull you back to this green section, right? This is our stakeholder feedback, and it is critical as we develop the actions, goals, and the financial input on each one of those actions. Let's see. So, and then finally, before we talk about broad strokes in our draft LCAP, we do want to remind the community that we are looking at 3 groups. We always focus on EL, on foster homeless, and on our SED students. Every student across San Luis Coastal is listed or addressed in our LCAP, but these 3 groups must have some specific metrics and specific action items and funds attached. What we wanted to do was give you some major action items that we've added this year. For the most part, these are new action items that we have added in response to the feedback or needs across the district that we are aware of. You remember that we have 3 focus areas in our LCAP. Focus 1 is rigorous, relevant, and engaging instruction. 2 is multi-tiered academic support, and 3 is our intentional culture of care. Mr. Mayfield, would you talk a little bit about some of the new focus or some of the new action items in focus area 1?
You bet. So this document, the goals, actions, budget document, is one piece of the LCAP. It's not the completed LCAP. So the overview is one piece. This document tonight that that is in front of you is one piece. And then at our next meeting on the 16th of May, we'll present some of the other components of the LCAP. But these are like the action items that are going to occur throughout the district. As we've mentioned several times, this being year 3, coming up being year 3 of a 3-year cycle, there won't be wholesale changes, but there will be some new things added. So we're looking at curriculum at all of our school sites, elementary school sites in reading and writing. And we're kind of accelerating the process for our dual language immersion schools. So we're going to bring an adoption to you at the May 30th meeting for our DLI schools, and training in that adoption will be included in this document tonight.
Mr. Mayfield,
Yes.
what's elevation, or is it elevation, or what is that?
Elevation. Yeah, I'll get
Well,
right.
it has 2 L's there.
I'll get right because it's ELL for English language learners. So I'll get right to that.
Oh.
Math Academy, we're looking at our math data and seeing the need to have articulation meetings with our teachers from grades 5 through 8. So Mr. O'Connor and I are working together to actively plan what that's going to look like. There'll be some summer components There'll be some components next year led by teachers, working together, our teacher leaders in math working together on math instruction and especially articulation. So Elevation is a new ELD monitoring tool that we're going to bring in. It does several things. It allows us to, it's a database and allows us to crunch numbers and manipulate data very easily for ELs. It's a tracking system for compliance. So it allows us to quickly see who is eligible to RFEP or redesignate as fluent English proficient. It also has some teaching components to it so that teachers can use it to get suggestions on how to do designated English language development instruction. And it will help us with the efforts that we're going to make next year in terms of English language development and working with our EL students. So it's an item, an action item in that budget actions goals document. Next year, we're going to do an elementary English language arts pilot. So we did the pilot for Spanish language arts this year in the adoption. Next year, we're going to pilot English language arts. And our reading committee, as I've brought to you before, has done some great work there. And then at the end of next year, at this time next year, in front of the board will come the English language arts adoption recommendation, and there'll be training right away in June for that. So that is included in this document as well. HSS, History Social Studies for elementary curriculum adoption will go in front of the board at the next meeting on the 16th. That's included in here along with training. We're adding Heritage Spanish for native Spanish speakers at Morro Bay High School, and also AP Spanish. And we're purchasing materials to make those things happen. So both AP language as well as literature. Yeah,
So
please.
the DLI curriculum adoption for Pacheco and Baywood, is that our reading language arts specifically, or is it a broader curriculum covering all the areas?
Reading language arts specifically. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have, we'll come to the board. I think it's the 30th meeting that we have that, and we'll give you all the information on the pilot and how that went and what we're recommending for adoption. And then secondary science adoptions in physics and AP chemistry, and you'll see those things within this document as well. In focus area 2, which is the multi-tiered system academic support or MTSS, we're going to change a little bit the responsibilities of our MTSS teachers at elementary to include some behavioral components. So really MTSS would have behavioral components within it. And school sites are seeing the need, as we talked about earlier with trauma-informed practice and whatnot, are seeing the need to have that included in the conversation. So we're going to help sites by changing the MTSS teachers' focus a little bit to include behavior. AVID, we're continuing our kind of full court press to get students early on, 6th grade, 5th grade on the coast into AVID. And Jane Hawley's done an outstanding job doing parent nights to recruit students for the middle and high schools. And you'll see that in this document. As well as our 6-year plans for college and career readiness. We're also doing that kind of work, you know, recruiting, talking to kids, you know, and encouraging them to finish the career pathway. We're going to, along the behavior lines, we're going to increase program specialist time at several sites. We looked at data across the district and identified sites that had a greater need. And so you'll see more program specialist time at those sites. And then transitional kindergarten, as I mentioned earlier, also has seen a need for behavior support. So we'll have program specialists working with teachers to help develop plans to help students be successful in school at the earliest age. And I love our conversation about, you know, having TK go for all 4-year-olds next year. The sooner we can get those kids in and start working with them and helping them to be successful, the better. And then we're expanding our co-teaching model, especially in the way of training at the high school level. So that would be multiple teachers in a classroom supporting students with special needs. And teachers have said, you know, we need a little bit more training, a little more support to make this successful. So you'll see that in that document as well. And then in focus area 3,
Mr. Banfield has a question.
What is PPS again? The first bullet, increase in middle school PPS counseling. What is that?
So PPS is Pupil Personnel Services. It's the name of their certificate, and I can give you a little bit more about that. So thank you. That takes us right into focus area 3, intentional culture of care. And what we tried to do here was give you one example from each of our levels. So the first one is to increase our middle school PPS. It's my watch. So the first one is for our middle schools, and it's to increase our school counselor percentage, right? So PPS counselor, that's the type of credential that our counselors across the district hold. And I think you all remember that last year we added full-time counselors at all of our elementary schools. This year at the middle school, we're looking at increasing a little bit, raising the number of days at Laguna. Right now we have 1.8 and we'd like to go up to 2.0. So we'll have 2 full-time counselors on the campus 5 days a week, in addition to other supports that we have on that campus. At Los Osos Middle School, we would be increasing as well. Right now, they have 1.0 PPS counselor. They also have other supports, which Janet will tell you an awful lot about, but we're looking at increasing that PPS counselor role at at Los Osos Middle School as well. Then the second one, SBHIP, that is our Student Behavioral Health Initiative Program. And this is a grant that Janet Gould in her department worked together to earn through the county. And what it does is it looks at behavioral health at the high school level. And we are looking at hiring PPS counselors at the high school as well through this grant. We would really be focusing on somebody with social work or maybe LCSW, but they are also PPS counselors. So our first bullet looks at middle school. Our second bullet looks at high school. We've already added to our elementary schools. So maybe taking a little bit of a left turn there, Youth Athletics for Achievement. That is in our LCAP. It was a very popular first year program this year, and we have it in there again, and we want to hit more kids, right? We want to really look at the leadership piece that we have in that program. You'll see that we also have Leader in Me curriculum, a district, what would we say? We're purchasing part of Leader in Me so that it can be used throughout the district. One of the things we want to do is kind of enhance our after-school youth athletics program to really get that leadership piece in there. So those are just a couple of ideas, a couple of things that you'll find in Focus Area 3, along with the things that Mr. Mayfield talked about in Focus Areas 2 and 1. Now, this link down here takes you to our draft LCAP. And I think Mr. Mayfield was going to get into that link and just kind of show you what you're looking at in that document.
You remember from the SPSAs that come in front of the board, these single plan for student achievement that come in front of the board from each school site in the month of October, late October or early November. And that is their action plan at their site level. This particular document, the budget action goals document, is similar to that from a district perspective. So we have metrics in here. It's divided into the 3 focus areas that Mrs. Frost mentioned before. And then within each of the focus areas are all the actions that we'll be taking and the cost and the proposed budget category, that kind of thing. And again, it is a draft. You can see the watermark there clearly in the middle of the page because we want people to know this right now is a working document. We'll talk about it again at next meeting, and then we'll introduce the 3rd component of the LCAP at the next meeting. And then at the final, and I believe the public hearing takes place at the next meeting. And then at the May 30th meeting, we'll have the final reading of the LCAP and then propose it for board approval. You'll see in the metrics tables here that, of course, we don't have the finished 22-23 metrics in there. And then once we put those in, the finished 22-23 metrics, then we can set our goals for next year, the 23-24 school year. And I'll just scroll down to, there's a lot in this document, but I'll just scroll down here and, highlight that. Again, these are the action areas, the amount of the cost there and the actual activity. And then we highlighted in green in the left-hand column some of the newer items that are in for this particular year, either new or kind of enhanced and changed a little bit. And then some of the other ones are things that were in before. As we've mentioned many times, and I've even mentioned it tonight, not a lot of major shifts. These are little tweaks and additions that we're doing, and we're staying with our focus on MTSS and really helping students, at greatest need to be successful.
Ms. Dobler-Drew?
I was wondering about something else that you were talking about up top, where our 5% improvement is taken, projected for 23-24 based on the fall results. Is that right? Because we don't have the end of the year, and then it's going to be a different cohort that starts it up again. So you can't go straight up in percentage wise. So you have to go back to, I just was noticing, like, for example, for Fast Bridge or any of them, that the 22-23 results 66%, and then the goal for the fall a year later would be 71%. So it looks like just methodically added 5%, and it looked like a good way to go. And have you found that? What have we found so far as is it all shown right here as far as the results? Well, I guess the 21-22 is shown.
As we finish the 22-23 school year, we'll fill in those results, and then we'll have the goals that would then be reflected off of that. And in general, as we've discussed with the board previously, we use 5% as what statisticians call a statistically significant increase in student achievement.
Right, and something that as I'm pointing out that I observed this time that I hadn't before, is that it's based off of an incoming class rather than an outgoing class results. Thank you.
One other thing that I would like to clarify is we have a couple of meetings coming up, the next of which is at a study session, where we'll do another deep dive. We'll look at each of the focus areas. We'll probably give a summary of the expenditures for each focus area, highlight some more of the action items, answer more of your questions. So we have one more meeting together to talk in depth about this document before we go to first read. So that's important to know too. I think we have 3 more meetings together, one for a deep dive, the first read, and then the second read and hopefully approval.
Is there any, is your presentation complete before I go to the public?
Yes, it is.
Anyone
Thank
from
you.
the public wishing to address us on this? Right, any other board comments, questions? Oh, yeah. Marilyn, did you have any remarks?
I just had a comment. This must be my night not to know things. But I wanted my colleagues to know that I requested that we be provided a legend for the education acronyms that are included in the LCAP, because they change so frequently. And also, I can't remember what they all mean. So I don't know if anyone else will benefit from receiving that, but I know that I will. So I just wanted to let you guys know that when we have our study session, we'll be receiving a kind of a crib sheet on the different acronyms. Thanks.
All of our areas have acronyms, so we're happy to do it.
Thank you. And then I understand Ms. Egan has a question, perhaps?
I had a question on the SBHIP grant and how long that lasts for, because it was for 3, looked like it was for 3 counselors at the high school. And is that just 1 year, or is it a longer time frame?
Our hope is that we can hire 2.5. We're looking at one for each of our comprehensive high schools and then a 0.5 for Pacific Beach. It is a one-year grant, and Mrs. Gould knows it much better than I do, but I'll give it a try. It is a one-year grant. It focuses heavily on Medi-Cal and trying to apply to Medi-Cal based on the services, and eventually you will be reimbursed to the point that you can maintain the program after the grant sunsets. The total of the grant, I think, is $400,000. We are not certain that we will have $400,000 in Medi-Cal billing after the first year, but we think every year it might get a little better. There may, there may be district decision making after the first year.
Thank you.
That answer your question, Lena?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much. We'll keep chipping away at the LCAP. All right, next is item 10.02, a counseling presentation.
Good evening. I will wait for our presentation. Ah. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm Janet Gould, your Executive Director of Student Support Services, and I'm happy to be here with you this evening to present the Comprehensive Counseling Program in San Luis Coastal. And with me this evening, I have John Clondro, Principal and Special Assignment for Student Services, and Angela Riles, our District Counselor. First, we want to start by recognizing the board in our district and appreciate your ongoing support of of counseling in our district. Our school board in our district has always been a huge proponent and has recognized the need for counseling. So we just thank you for your ongoing support. And tonight we're pleased to share with you through data and stories our district's comprehensive program. We have much to share with you, and to the extent possible, we ask that you hold your questions until the conclusion of our presentation. So I want to start by highlighting that we do take a comprehensive approach to counseling in our district. And tonight, much of what we will talk about is our PPS, our school counselors. But really, when we look at counseling across our district, there's many different facets that are coming together and working together to support the counseling that we have in our district. And one of the things that Diane France just mentioned to you is our SB HIP grant staff. And I'll be talking to you a little bit more about that at the end of this presentation. This is a visual of all of our elementary school counselors, and it makes me smile in recognition of the board's work and approval of increasing counselors at our elementary to full-time counselors this past year. So we have 9 full-time school counselors at our 9 comprehensive elementary schools and a 0.4 at Teach Elementary. And one of our new counselors this year, Kayla, is in the audience this evening, and we're really happy to have her joining us. And our professional counseling team continues on at our secondary level. And this year we were able to utilize CTE grant funding to hire Jessica Baza, a CTE counselor who splits her time between Los Osos Middle School and Laguna Middle School. And we'll talk a little bit more this evening in our presentation about some of the exciting work that she's done, as well as Jessica Hoyt, who's our Cuesta liaison. Last year, we were able to utilize her in our district for 4 days a week, and we're able to increase that to 5 days a week. this year, while our allocation for our the rest of our middle and high school remained unchanged this year. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Angela Riles to talk a little bit about our elementary counseling data.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. I feel honored to have been able to talk to you for the third time this year about school counseling. It's such an important aspect of our schools, and I'm here to share with you several types of data that we've collected throughout the year. And really, there's three types that we're looking at. And this data here on this slide really represents some process data, kind of those hard numbers that we look at to see the effects of our programming. When you look in that first column here, we talk about tier 1 services. Tier 1 is those services that reach 100% of our students. And looking at these numbers, we see that at our 7 sites that are teaching the second step SEL curriculum this year, over 1,000 lessons were taught to students. So 100% of our students received over 1,000 second step lessons. And then we look at classroom lessons taught. 476 counselor lessons were taught in the classroom to students, whether those be in response to specific trends or behaviors that maybe teachers or the school were seeing. Those may be curriculum type programs such as zones of regulation, or they may be many of our or all of our 4th and 5th grade lessons, or all of our 4th and 5th grade students received bully prevention lessons this spring. So 476 lessons, that's a pretty big increase from what we've been able to do in the past. When we look at tier 2, that's a smaller group of students that need a more intensive service for some of their needs. And when we look at those numbers, we see that nearly 600 students in our district were seen in small group instruction this year by our elementary school counselors across 175 groups. And just to give you some context for that, I spoke with our Hawthorne Elementary counselor. Last year, she was able to hold 9 groups throughout the school year, and this year she held 15. So we see almost double the number of groups that she was able to hold. And of course, that results in the number of students she was able to reach this year. Finally, we see our tier 3 services here, which is our most intensive services that we offer for students, the smallest percentages of students, but usually the students that need the most intense work. 68 of our students across 6 sites received support through our contracted services for therapeutic support in outside agencies. And 97.2% of our students that were deemed high risk through our universal screener received either tier 2 or tier 3 services this year. That small percentage that's not represented there did decline services. So again, this slide just really represents some of the data that was collected, that's really processed data, and gives us some really good numbers to look at the impact of our elementary counseling program. One thing we're really proud of that we did this year on a tier 1 level was implement climate and culture weeks across all of our campuses. So all of our campuses start with Hello Week, which is tied to the Sandy Hook Promise programming, and that was held in September. All of our campuses participated in some way in the Great Kindness Challenge in the winter time, and all campuses held a Be Unique or Ability Awareness Week throughout the school at some point throughout the school year. So again, that's a tier 1 service that we were able to implement because we had such an increase in elementary counselors, over 3,000 students impacted by these climate and culture weeks. Now we're going to talk about some of that individual counseling data. When we pull from our student information system in Aries, we see that our elementary counselors had over 8,000 contacts this year with students. And those contacts include personal counseling, behavioral counseling, or at-risk counseling. That doesn't even include parent conferences, parent contacts, or teacher contacts, or resource referrals. So when we look at that, we're looking at each site had an average of 862 contacts, which is a pretty amazing number. When we look at last year's contacts, it was about 4,000. So we're looking at double the number of contacts this year with the increased counseling services. When we talk about individual counseling support, when we see students on what we call a short-term basis, so anywhere between 4 and 10 sessions throughout the year, nearly 400 of our students had services that were short-term this year, and long-term services, which is anywhere 11 or more sessions with a counselor individually this year, was at 250, average of about 27 students per site. So those are some really intense services to see a counselor more than 11 times in a school year. And because of our increased services, we were able to do that. This final number here gives us an idea of the percentage of school populations that had some individual contact. with counselors this year, and that was over 30% of our sites had an individual contact with a school counselor this year. Additionally, we held 383 student success team meetings. Elementary counselors took over the facilitation and coordination of those meetings this year, and that aligns pretty closely with what we've done in the past. Moving on to parent engagement. Of course, parent engagement has been a big part of implementation at all of our schools, especially when we're talking at the elementary level. So we were able to hold some parent engagement lessons both on the coast at Monarch Grove in the fall and here at Sinsheimer Elementary in the spring with the positive parenting project put on, and parents were invited, childcare was provided, food, all of those great things, and we had some great turnout at those events. Also, we had an opioid awareness and prevention parent forum hosted at Lambs that was also attended by many elementary students. And then individually at our school sites, counselors were doing presentations on topics like internet safety, emotional regulation, visiting PTA meetings or ELAC meetings to talk about the services available, along with family newsletters, educational videos, in general, just involvement in many different team meetings and parts of the school. So we're gonna now talk, let's see, we're going backwards. Here we go. We talked about process data and kind of those specific numbers. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what we call procedural data. So how have attitude, skills, and behaviors really changed as a result of our school counselors? So we did that this year by doing an administrative survey. We surveyed all of our elementary principals and got some feedback on how elementary counseling increased services have affected their school. And we really talked at the beginning of the year that that was our goal. At the end was to talk about how we've impacted school sites. And you can see here that 90% of administrators say that counselors strive to be visible and available before school, at recess, and lunch, and after school. And that's an answer to a call by our superintendent to be more visible and available, both for safety, climate, and culture increases on our campuses. And our counselors have really answered to that. And our administrators say they're seeing it. 90% of our administrators say that the increased school counseling support has made a dramatic difference in how their sites run in a positive way. And to me right there, that's some procedural data that really speaks volumes to what we've accomplished this year. This quote from an elementary principal: "The overall day-to-day functioning of our school feels noticeably different in this year in a significant and positive way." So that's hard data to quantify, but definitely good data to hear. And finally, 100% of our elementary counselors would like to continue the increased services of elementary counselors. You know, we like to throw a good question out there that we're going to get 100% on and a good procedural data. So obviously, elementary principals are happy with the extra support and are really seeing the difference on their campuses. So as I wrap up talking about elementary counseling, I just want to touch on a few notable pieces that we're really proud of. First of all of our schools participated in Culture and Climate Weeks this year, which I think all of the teachers really appreciated. The counselors had a great time, and people saw some significant changes in students. All of our principals report seeing a franchise model, which I talked to you about in September, where many of our schools are doing the same types of programming across all 10 schools. We saw an increase in contacts in small groups and in classroom lessons this year. We saw some significant and meaningful professional development being offered by our school counselors. In April, we were able to present to many of our elementary schools some trauma-informed care and practices training. A variety of different trainings were held at various schools across the district. And that was some of the first time that some counselors have had that opportunity to really do meaningful PD for their schools, and we got great feedback from it. And finally, every elementary school counselor completed an end of year report this year, which is something that they've turned into us, and we're able to use to collect data for this, but also to start developing some trends and goals for next year so that we have some long-term outcome data on what our elementary counseling program is doing for students. Lastly, while data and numbers can tell a lot of things, it can't always tell the story of our students. And so I have a short case study here I'd like to share with you about one of our students that's at the elementary level. So I'm sharing with you about a student we're going to call Jocelyn. Jocelyn is a 4th grade student. Her and her mother struggle with homelessness, hopping from motel to motel throughout the week, and often sleeping in their car on the weekends when the hotel rates skyrocket. She's a good student but struggles getting work done because of the instability with housing, and her mind is often elsewhere, whether it be from worry or exhaustion from a bad night's sleep. Her struggles are displayed outwardly in her behavior, having peer relationship struggles along with behavioral outbursts in class. Jocelyn is someone we might call a frequent flyer and checks in with the counselor daily while on the playground and is always in the office needing a pack of ice or with a tummy ache. Jocelyn participates in a weekly small group with the school counselor to work on friendships and often is also in for one-on-one behavioral counseling and support a couple of times a week. When Jocelyn can't calm down in class, the counselor comes and takes her for a walk around campus to help her work through some breathing techniques and regulate. Jocelyn is on a check-in, check-out system, comes each morning to get a high five and some words of encouragement from staff members, and checks out daily, reviewing what went well that day and what can go better tomorrow. Every Friday, Jocelyn picks up a backpack full of food to help her get through the weekend. She has a new winter coat from a Coats for Kids drive over the holiday season. Today, her shoes busted right open on the playground, but not to worry, extra shoes were in the shoe closet and now she's sporting some sweet new Vans. Jocelyn and her mom have received approval for some low-income housing, and they're hopeful they won't have to change schools once they find a house. Jocelyn is really working on her coping skills that her counselor's teaching her and making new friendships that are maintainable for her. Next year's looking up for this kiddo, who is supported by multiple services in her school site this year. So just a little peek into what the day-to-day life of some of our students is like and how our elementary counselors are able to support that. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to pass it on to my friend and colleague, John Calandra, to talk about secondary.
Righty, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to share a bit about what our secondary counselors are doing to support our students, and they've been doing a ton. Just by the numbers, this was pulled about 2 weeks ago. We had 24,612 entries in areas for our secondary counselors. That averages to about 6.72 entries per student at the secondary level. There were over 3,000 schedule changes that our counselors took care of. 503 students saw our counselors 4 to 10 times. 183 students have seen the counselors more than 10 times. Over 150 lessons taught, 12 parents nights led. Those are primarily at our high schools. And this does not include all of the time that our counselors actively spent with students outside of their offices as well, because as Angela mentioned, our counselors have really committed to being present at lunches and at breaks to connect with our students in that tier 1 relationship building way. And those are not quantified here, mostly because if you can see that little tiny quote at the bottom, you have to be the ice cream truck rather than the ice cream park. I broke down the data as Angela did with our 3 tiers, because our counselors do work with kids in all 3 tiers. But when I was looking at the secondary, our secondary counselors really focus on kind of 3 domains when they're working with kids: college and career, academics, and then social emotional. So I broke it down into those, and I'm just going to share a few highlights from each level on the slides here. So in the areas of college and career, you say you got middle schools on one side and high school on the other, because they do focus on slightly different things, though there are some commonalities between the two. So we've been fortunate enough to have both Jessica Bauza and Jessica Hoyt helping our students specialize in some of those college and career areas. But our counselors do a lot of that work in addition to having that specialized support from both of the Jessicas. Of note, our middle school students start off with college, the CCGI, the College and Career Guidance Initiative programming. So they log in, they do a interest survey, and our 8th graders get lessons on how to select a college. Also at the middle school level with everybody, our 8th graders do start their 4-year planning. They meet with their middle school counselors and their high school counselors. So every single one of our 8th graders has that experience. At the high school level, our counselors committed to every counselor committed to meeting with 100% of their student caseload this year to talk to them about where they were on their college and career planning. So that was every student at that tier 1 level. At our tier 2 level, you're going to find our AVID students. Those are a small group of students who is getting some specialized support, but also at the high school level, in addition to AVID, our counselors are providing specific targeted instruction on how to fill out different types of college applications. And they do this at lunch, they do it after school, and they do it during specified tutorials where they're working on specific types of college applications. So groups of students can come in and can get help. At that top level, we've got students who are meeting with our CTE counselor at the middle school level. That would be Jessica Baza. We've got Jessica Hoyt meeting with students who are doing dual enrollment at Quest and also taking Questa courses. And then we've got our counselors who are working with individual students who have specific questions about whatever college application they're working on. So our counselors are there to provide that one-to-one support for our students. When it comes to academics, our counselors are also doing a lot at each of the level. One of the things I want to point out that 48% of each caseload at middle school met with their counselor to talk about an academic issue. That's separate from the typical class scheduling, all of those types of things that they do. And 33% of each caseload for high school came in to talk with their counselor about a specific academic issue. And that's in addition to 100% of all of the students getting that college and career guidance. So some of those academic issues that students might be coming in, if they end up on the D or F list, the counselor might be seeing them about that. If a student is struggling with the class, the student is absent for a prolonged amount of time, our counselors will pull them in and help them figure out how to get back on track academically. So those are some of the things that might fall into that category. Students who have trouble with organization or just need that check-in for motivation. Those would be some of those things that our counselors would be providing support with. In tier 2, SLOA High has had about 2/3 of all of the schedule changes. That's partially due to the trimester system and the complexities of the trimester system. They also have more opportunities for students to need to change classes because of one more trimester than our other schools. Morro Bay is close behind on that. And then our middle schools usually have about 100 class changes per counselor. And again, that's our middle school schedules are much tighter and don't have as much flexibility as our high school schedules do. So that makes it a little bit easier. At the tier 3 level, the smallest amount of students, at the tier 2 level, you'll also see SSTs, our student study teams. Our counselors are in charge of collecting that data from the teachers, collecting information from the parents, and really bringing everyone together to look for what's going to help this student right now. So our counselors at high school and middle school do coordinate those SSTs. Not as many as at the middle school, fortunately, but still plenty at the high school and middle school level. And then on that top level, those are our counselors who are sitting in on those higher level SSTs, the 504s, the IEPs. And you're going to see a little bit more of that at the high school because at the age of 16, students with an IEP start to look at their transition plan. That's their transition beyond high school once they've left the high school environment, once they've no longer have their IEP, what is their plan? So a lot of that involves having some vocational planning, possibly some extended learning beyond high school. And so our counselors are there to help support them in that. And then we look at our social emotional. And again, we did a lot of work on that tier 1. We had our counselors in the quads at breaks and at lunch. Our high schools really committed to having 100% of their students meet with the counselor. I know our middle school counselors go into the classrooms and introduce themselves to the students so students know who they are. They do a quick interest survey. At the middle school, we also are doing Sabres and My Sabres. So we're collecting that universal screener information and that 97% also applies to the middle schools that we are hitting those students that show up on that screener. We are providing them with tier 2 or tier 3 supports across the board. So in addition to those things at the tier 1 level, our middle schools and high schools are also hosting focus weeks. They do start with hello. We've got the Say Something clubs and the Promise clubs in our in-town schools. I know right now we're in May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and our high schools are working on Mental Health Awareness Weeks at the high school. When we go up to that tier 2 level, we've got about 12.2% of our caseloads at the middle school level at seeing our counselor 4 to 10 times for personal issues, 15% at the high school, so a little bit higher at the high school. Morro Bay High does run some small groups as well. San Luis High School does not have the small groups. And then at our tier 3 level, we've got our school counselors seeing about 5% of our students. And then you can see underneath there on the high school side, about 3% of our students are participating in our contracted supports that we have. So those are our outside therapists that come in. That 3% is seeing the specialized therapists that we're contracting with, but they're also seeing our school counselors. So even though we've got tier 3 supports coming from outside, our counselors do tend to see those students. They're not fully taken off of our counselors' caseloads. So the thing about this slide is that tier 1 support where we're hitting all those kids, we do spend a lot of time there, but that tier 3 kid who's come in 11 or more times, that's a kid who takes up a lot of time for our counselors, and they really need our counselors one-on-one specialized attention. So while the pyramid looks like we spend a lot of time down at the base, it would probably be flipped if we looked at, even though it's only 5% of the kids, our counselors are spending a tremendous amount of time working with those students because they do need a lot of support. So this is our tier 3 support. So these are our contracted counselors that we're working with through County Behavioral Health or Community Counseling Center. At LAMS and LOMS, we have a PEI counselor. That counselor is working with running small groups and seeing lower level students. And then we've got a licensed marriage and family therapist who's seeing our students of higher need. And the numbers are there. At SLO High School, we have a LCSW who came in November. Morro Bay High, we have an MFT who came in also in November. Just like with our own schools and our own community, we know that it's really hard to hire people in these fields, and we suffered that same problem with our community partners. They were looking for qualified people to get them into the schools. At SLO High, one of our frustrations was that our LCSW ended up seeing a lot of our students who had drug and alcohol issues and needed to see the LCSW because of the way our discipline policy runs. So that person was filled up very quickly. So right now our LCSW is beginning to finally get to some of those students who've been on that waiting list because our LCSW has worked their way through a lot of those students who were hired to see the LCSW. And now we're getting to those kids who really need to and want to be seeing that LCSW. So like I said, these students who are on that tier 3 support are receiving specialized support, but when these counselors aren't there, they do have to go to the person that they've got the best relationship with on the campus, which is often their school counselor too. So they're kind of getting extra help, and our counselors are seeing them as well as these specialized tier 3 counselors. When we look at how our high school counselors, what their work distribution looks like, I threw it into this lovely little pie chart. This is what their logged work looks like. So this is based on logged entry data. We charted how our counselors work. Log time is not the same as spent time, but from this chart, you can see that 82% of our high school counselors' work is spent on college and career or academics, leaving about 18% of the time for personal and crisis counseling. The graph doesn't, of course, demonstrate the time spent in each of these areas, nor does it show that when our counselors are meeting, doing academic planning, they are building relationships with their students. They're talking about other things than just academic planning. So counselors who are meeting with students to discuss academics are building that relationship, and those students who are in crisis are probably going to take up more time than is represented by this chart. So when we look at the levels of need that we're seeing, we might think about how we want this chart to look as a board and as a district. So I'm going to end with a case study, as Angela did. So my case study will be a middle school student, because I talked a lot about high school, so I'll show a little bit about what our middle school counselors are doing as well. So Angel is a 7th grade student. He's been in 6 schools in his 8 years of schooling. He currently is living with his family in Section 8 housing. He's been in an abusive home most of his life. Mom and brothers moved here to get away from dad. They still have some contact with dad. Angel struggles with self-control, and he's been suspended in the past for fighting. One of those kids that you can see the energy running through him even when he's trying to stand still. He's always had a hard time controlling himself. Recently, he was suspended for hitting another student when that student made a crack about him being short. He had just left the counselor's office when it happened. Angel has ongoing struggles with keeping his emotions in control. Angel sees our counselors pretty regularly, having first connected at the beginning of the year when our counselors meet with all new students to help them acclimate. That would be a tier 1 outreach that we have for our students. I'm looking for the rest Angel here, which is gone. And I'm just going to pick it up because I know it. So Angel also sees the counselor for academics because Angel is on the DNF list. So the counselor sees him for academics, which becomes a tier 2 counseling. As they have these meetings for the academics, Angel actually likes coming to the counselor and starts coming to the counselor when he's struggling with other people. Again, that would be a tier 2. Angel starts to see that counselor fairly regularly. When the counselor help Angel when he returns back from his suspension, they have a meeting with his parent and they offer Angel the MFT counselor because Angel does need that tier 3 level of counseling as well. He's going to need that specialized support. So with our counselor on campus, our counselor is going to pass Angel off, do a warm handoff to our MFT counselor, but is also then going to follow up and make sure that Angel is meeting his needs academically, keeping off of the DNF list, and also meeting the needs of his suspension contract when he comes back. So building that relationship with Angel early on makes it much easier to get Angel into other services later.
Okay, we could literally fill hours talking with you and presenting with you the important work that our counseling team has done this year. But I want to take just a minute to spotlight our CTE middle school counselor, which is a new position that we had this year thanks to a CTE grant. This counselor spends half of her time at Las Osas Middle School and half at Laguna Middle School. She works primarily with our 7th grade students with a focus on our English learners, our reclassified fluent English proficient students, and our socioeconomically disadvantaged students to help develop their understanding and really build their enthusiasm about their middle school, high school, and beyond careers. So this slide speaks to the many facets of the work that's being done, and words like GPA and A to G requirements and CTE pathways can sound like a foreign language to our middle school students. And while this academic vernacular is something that we introduce to all of our middle school students, Jessica's work is really aimed at providing ongoing additional support and inspiration to these targeted students, giving them a positive pathway forward in our schools. What we have found is that while our counselors have just done amazing work, it's been tough. It's not easy. It's never easy work, but over these past few years post-pandemic, it's been more challenging than ever. And we've seen significant behaviors with our students. And one of the ways that this is displayed is through our suspension rate. And this slide shows that suspension rates have overall increased since the 18-19 school year. And additionally, our administrators are expressing continued concern over increased behaviors that they are seeing on their campuses. And suspensions alert us that students may need additional support. And so when we dug into the data, what we found is that of all of the students that are suspended, 85% of our students have had multiple interactions with our school counselors. At our secondary level, we know that our counselors ensure that they're being informed as students are suspended, and they remain included in return to school meetings, as well as follows up with parents, reaching out to teachers or coaches if there's any activity suspensions, and just continuing to follow up with our students. We see our suspension data as an ongoing opportunity to develop some goals with some outcome data in order to reduce our suspension rate. And this is where our counseling team will like to start some focus in the fall of 23-24 in order to proactively address this. So finally, looking forward into 23-24, there are many things that we want to focus on as we move forward. And one of the things that I want to highlight at our elementary level is, we had increased counselors, full-time counselors, and they really make a difference on our elementary schools. And our principals were introduced to them this year. We want to spend time working with our administrators at the elementary school, really ensuring efficient and effective practices and uses of our elementary counselors to really support the school climate at each of our schools. In our secondary, we talked about the Student Behavioral Health Initiative Grant. at all of our high schools. So all of our high schools, San Luis High will be hiring a full-time counselor, Morbe High a full-time counselor, and a 50% counselor at Pacific Beach, who will really focus on the social emotional supports that we offer our students. And included that is developing a well space at both Morbe High and San Luis High. I think San Luis High was working on it as like the care space at the Commons. So coming up with a nice name and just a welcoming space. And one of the things that was really exciting about this is when we looked at the feedback that we received from our students in Student Senate, both of our high schools were asking for a wellness space on their campus or additional access to social emotional counseling. And this grant is going to provide us with that opportunity. So we'll be working very closely with our administrative and counseling teams at the two high schools as we roll forward with this grant. So thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening, and I will open it for any questions that you might have.
First, I'd like to go to the public, see if anyone has any questions. Oh, okay, we'll come back to the board. Mr. Unger?
So just a couple of things. First, I'm excited to see that we're really looking at our suspension rates, because one of the things as a board member I notice is students that we see who are brought forward for expulsion typically have a host of suspensions. And thinking about your case study, Mr. Calandro, that could be something, a student that we've seen on any number of occasions. And if we can reduce suspensions and expulsions, I think that's beneficial for all students. The second thing is a question for Janet. When we talk about our tier three interventions, and some of our tier 3 interventions are MFTs, LCSWs, are we able, or are they able to provide family therapy as well?
That's a good question. Our MFTs at this point are not providing family therapy other than our students with IEPs that have URSUS counseling on their IEPs, and some of that does have a parenting counseling component.
And do the counselors, I'm assuming the counselors work really closely with our family advocates?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
definitely.
Ms. Dobler-Drew, before I come to you, someone from the public did raise her hand. Ms. Egan, are you with us?
I just wanted to acknowledge everybody, especially the counseling team at the district office. I mean, this presentation is pretty amazing. And it shows the collective work of all the counselors at the school sites, as well as the district office. So I just wanted to acknowledge you all for that. I think it's remarkable. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then my only question was the pie chart. I was just curious what the difference of that pie chart would be between the trimester system at SLO High School and the other scheduling systems at Morro Bay, Laguna, or Loams. I don't expect an answer right now, but I was just curious.
I can tell you, because I kind of did look at that. It works out to be about the same, just because of the way that it's logged in the computer and how it's broken down by counselor. So a lot of the data that we used was holistic data for the high school. So it doesn't have as big an effect as you might think, because there's many more facets to it, to the academic, other than just the class changes.
But we certainly do acknowledge that having a trimester system and having one more chance to make classes does impact.
Thanks.
Anything else, Lena?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dobler-Drew.
Similar to Mr. Unger's question about parents, it would seem to be very important to have this parent connection, because not having that parent support might have been some of the causes of the problems in the first place. So I just really hope that we are able to bring the families in more somehow, or whatever the guidelines are, I don't know, you don't want to, if they, if they're not certified to do certain things with families, I realize they can't, but the MFTs are. So it's just really important to keep family togetherness in this day and age because there's a lot mitigating against it.
Agreed.
Thanks.
Thanks. I think I like these new microphones. This is kind of cool.
Now you like them.
I like it. Yeah. It's very, very portable. So I have several questions that are not about microphones. One is, as sometimes advocate for PB, on your pictures of the secondary PST team, PB's not there.
There is no PPS counselor currently at Pacific Beach. They have a 4-day a week MFT who is through our behavior. It's one of our contract employees, but it's not a PPS counselor.
Okay. 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 Let's see. Is there, so on slide 8, we were talking about contacts and the number of contacts and all that, and the variety of contacts. And so I'm wondering, the caseload just seems really, I don't know if that's the right term. Is there a maximum number of hours that's recommended for this type of counselor for contact with students? Is there something in the field that's like a recommended? It just seems like there's a lot of student contact time.
Right.
Is that,
There is a lot of.
are we pushing it to the
Yeah,
limit?
no, I
Are
have
we
not
over the
heard
limit?
of any recommended number of hours in terms of, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, you got it.
Number of contacts. I haven't heard anything
Okay.
related to a number of, I've heard caseload, but not.
Let's follow up with that. Like our credentials are specific for school counseling, and so we are not licensed to be therapists. That's why we contract with outside therapists.
Right.
So typically, we like to see students on a short-term basis, which falls into that 4 to 10 session area. But of course, there's always kids that we need, and so when they get into that 11+ range, of course, that's when we start looking at some outside.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm not asking my question well. If you had 400 four-session kids, that's a lot of contact. So is there some kind of hourly max that you guys can devote your time to those individual less than 11?
There, I think just as by need, we want to help the teachers and the students.
Yeah.
and classes as
Well, I'm glad I don't have your job, I guess. On slide 14, we're talking a lot of talking about support for students, and it seems like there's a lot of emphasis mostly on college and like helping fill out applications and what college to go to. And it just seems like there may be some other options and just, I mean, both my 2 kids, smart as they are, one didn't finish college till 32. The other is a carpenter. And just not all kids go to college.
There's definitely different pathways for kids.
Right, but are we helping them discover those alternative pathways? I mean, contact with the trades, contact with contractors, contact with auto mechanics.
Yeah, I would say our district is doing extensive work along different pathways.
Okay, all right. Just the word college isn't there. Let me see. It talks about absences, and it talks about chronic absences. Can you help again define for me what chronic absenteeism is?
Sure.
Because I
Chronic
think more than
absenteeism
11.
is when students miss 10% or more of the school year for any reason. So with 180 days in a school year, if a student misses 18 days of school for any reason, so it could be illness, it could be unexcused or excused, then students are considered chronically absent.
And the consequence or the support for somebody that's
Well, what we know is that studies show that students who miss school don't do as well, right? So we know that absenteeism and chronic absenteeism has really been a focus in our district pre-pandemic for many years, and we saw some great movement in our chronic absenteeism rate.
Right.
And then the pandemic came and we had to really change our messaging from come to school to stay at home. And if you remember the 2021, it was like, oh, you're sick, you need to stay out for 10 days. So, I mean, chronic absenteeism rates across the stage went from like, I'm not even Chris is saying like 25 to some places, 50.
2 days a week, 2 days a month.
Yeah. Yeah, 50, in some places, 50% of the school district was chronically absent. So we are working with our administrative team, looking at different plans that we can put in place that are really addressing chronic absenteeism, changing our messaging now to we need you in school. And part of that too is it's creating these warm, welcoming school environments and making all of our schools a place where students feel safe, physically and emotionally, and want to be.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting message that when you say no matter what the absenteeism is, and that it affects their learning, because I'm still hearing about people that are taking their kids out to go on a ski trip or to go back east and whatever, and it still creates chronic absenteeism.
Yes,
I think
but
that's
we do
another-
have,
another-
yes.
Another messaging.
Well, we do have a short-term independent study in our district where students can take between 6 and I believe it's 20 days any one time in the school year. So if the family has an event or something that they're taking their child to, they let us know ahead of time. We create an independent study and then they are considered present if they complete the terms of their independent study. That's one time. So that is outside of the chronic absenteeism.
And that determines when they contact us, and I would say if they contact us, but might be
Yeah,
semantics.
yeah.
Okay. I thank you for this. This was a really good, thought-provoking presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Obertrude.
So now that we're in a different kind of epoch, post-COVID and everything, is there talk anymore, like when I was a teacher, when they reached that 10% or even before, there was like talks of truancy? Are those talks no longer? or
No,
what?
there's still talks. I mean, truancy has to be, if you have 3 unexcused absences, then you're labeled as truant. And all of our school sites monitor absenteeism of all students and address. So well before a student reaches a 10% of missed days, we are reviewing the attendance records of all of our students, looking at reasons for why students might be absent. Our principals, our counselors are working with families to address needs that they may have or reasons for why they may be absent. And then we do, of course, have a school attendance review board that is different members from our community that are all coming together, listening about what is happening, what barriers are preventing a parent or a child from getting to school, and how that can be supported, and does have the potential for a punitive outcome for families as well if children aren't coming to school.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Buckman?
Yeah, just real quickly. And I was looking at the presentations that the counselors do with parents. I'm real excited about that. Is there social media or the hazard?
Yeah, we did one on social media this year. And that's definitely an area that I think we need to continue to look at expanding because it's definitely a challenge.
Great, thanks. Or maybe you could do like a TikTok video and
Yeah. Not me, but I'm sure there's other.
that's where they'll go see it.
Thanks. I wanted to just point out that several of throughout the evening, I've noticed that comments made by our student senators, again, are aligning with some of this, and especially the trusted adult piece. Because I think we do have students who, for whatever reason, don't have a trusted adult at home. And having this great variety of sources, counselors being at the forefront, but also the MFTs and the social workers and these, I appreciate very much that our safety net gets broader and broader.
Right.
And in ways that can hone in on specific issues that our kids may have. And I think that speaks well to concerns expressed by our students within that realm of trusted adult. And I also wanted to point out, I know there were only two, but I noticed we do have a couple of male counselors. And I think that's important too. We've got kids who will feel more comfortable, perhaps with a male counselor. So I appreciate that as well. Ms. Dobler-Drew?
So have you got any data yet about whether there's an increase in problematic families where there's not a trusted adult at home? Is this going up or is it not going up and we're not have to be concerned?
Do I have any actual hard numbers data? No. Perception data is, in general, our families really struggled post-pandemic. And we've seen increased behaviors. We've seen, families that struggle. So I don't have like a hard number, but I can tell perception wise, it's pretty challenging out there. And that's why we are so appreciative of the support that you as a board give to counselors and of a comprehensive program that can start to address and continue to address many of the concerns that our families have.
Right. And I'm going to be a broken record. I really look forward to bringing the parents in more. Sometimes it's just a little bit change of perspective where that kid and that parent can understand each other better, So I just really hope for more family counseling. I
Thank
just
you.
feel it's urgent.
Okay, Mr. Buckman?
Nope, sorry, I'm good.
Oh, you sure?
Yep. fine.
Okay, all right. I see no other lights on. Thank you. Thanks very much. This is really informative. Thank you for hanging in there with us in a long meeting. Okay, our next item is a Measure D award of
A
bid.
riveting track shed. Is our next
This-
presentation. Is
I
everybody
know,
leaves
it's
the room?
pretty exciting.
So we actually went out and did a cupcake bid for a large shed for the track area at San Luis Obispo High School. Basically, all the track equipment that goes into it. So that bid came through. As you can see, there were several bids that came through. And I'm asking the board tonight to award the bid to Atkinson Concrete Construction Incorporated, as they were the low bid and were qualified.
All right, I'd like to go to the public. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? Seeing no one, we'll come back to the board for any discussion, questions. And if there are none, then a motion, this is an action item. Mr. Unger.
I move approval of item 10.03, Measure D, award of bid number 309, San Luis High School new athletic storage building project.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Unger and a second by Ms. Dobler-Drew. Mr. Banfield,
Yes.
Ms. Dobler-Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Unger,
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and Mr. Clausen is, I don't see him right now, and Mrs. Roger is not with us. So motion carries 5-0, 2 absent.
Thank you.
All right, next, always our favorite, some revisions to board policy.
Thank you. So our first one is Board Policy 3270, Sale and Disposal of Books, Equipment, and Supplies. It talks about unusable, obsolete, or no longer needed materials and supplies that the board reviews their estimated value and that determines if they should be donated, sold, or disposed of. I recommend this comes back for a second reading.
Anyone from the public with a comment on this item? Okay, Ms. Dobler-Drew, your light on?
Don't remember if it's this policy or another one, but when they get disposed of, are they recycled or landfill?
I'm afraid I can't answer that
Oh,
question.
okay.
I'd have to look through. My
Yeah.
guess is that we'd have a little guidance on that. There's certain things that can be recycled and certain things that cannot be. There are certain things that can be donated and certain things that cannot be.
Okay, because I remember
Good
there was,
question, though.
there was something about take them to the dump and,
Yeah, and completely disposed of. Yes, it is in there.
no, we were talking about books, right?
Mhm.
Right, Diane?
In some cases, it's also equipment and supplies. So we might find those things in the dump versus our textbooks.
You're just toying with me, Mark.
I know.
Why not turn around?
Send me
It is. Okay, all right. Everyone okay with this coming back for a second reading next meeting? Thank you. Next,
Yes, number 6178, this is career technical education. And this is implementing Assembly Bill 101. So it talks about collaboration with businesses, trades, and government agencies to provide learning opportunities and career fairs. Again, we're in CTE programming. It allows the participation of private school students in CTE programs as spaces are available. And it also talks about CTE courses as an alternative means to meet credits, but lists that they have to have rigor like our other classes do that allow for A through G credit. I recommend this comes back for a second read.
anyone from the public interested in this? Seeing none, we'll come back to the board. Any questions or comments? Everyone all right with it being brought back for a second reading? Thank you. And one more.
All right, this is Board Bylaw 9323, and this is mandatory. And it is updated to reflect Senate Bill 1100, and this is from 2022. It removes, it allows the board to remove an individual for disrupting a board meeting, but it establishes that warning the individual prior to removal is required, and it defines a disruption versus a true threat of force. One other piece in this board bylaw is a 10 p.m. end time to board meetings. It does allow the board to vote to go beyond 10 o'clock. When the subcommittee was looking at this, the the School Boards Association talked about a 5-hour meeting. We went back and forth with closed session and open session and what 5 hours is, and really settled on 10 o'clock as an hour that we might end with an opportunity to for the board to extend that time. And I do recommend this comes back for a second read.
Anyone from the public? Mr. Unger.
Yeah, I did read that, and although we rarely go past 10 PM, I can't remember in fact the last time we did. It was common years ago. With our meetings though, beginning early at 5, that becomes a 5-hour meeting, which is a long meeting. And I would like to suggest that as we look at this, we do consider a time 10 o'clock, for example, but also we may want to consider a time limit on the meetings as well.
Would you want that to include closed session?
No, I think I think it would be separate.
That was it.
And that was one of our questions that we discussed as a subcommittee.
Mr. Buckman.
Not teasing. While I appreciate the concept, I would like to stick with somehow with it not being a limit, but a suggestion. And then this concept of the board voting as a whole, whether to consider keeping the meeting longer. And I don't know if Mr. Unger's amenable to that.
Yeah, I just think that, for example, if a board study session, other than say an all-day retreat, for example, a 5-hour board study session is a long time. And in addition, it's a lot to ask our administrators to sit in a meeting for 5 hours when they have a lot of other work that they need to do and, get up the next morning and do it well. So I don't have a problem with the 10 o'clock, but I also think that we may want to consider a time limit with the approval of the board to continue it. Of course, yeah.
Okay,
As a group, we would be able to vote on that.
Yeah.
I would hate to see us end a discussion that was important or one where we have a lot of public comment. because I think it's important for us to hear the public comment as well.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
This will come back for a second reading. All right,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the certificated and, I'm sorry, to the consent agenda. Please let me know if there's anything you'd like pulled. 11.01, approval of certificated and classified personnel items. 11.02, acceptance of donations. 11.03, approval of furniture and equipment request. 11.04, approval of purchase orders and CAL card purchases. 11.05, approved quarterly report on uniform complaint filings, the Williams settlement. 11.06, approval of warrants and payroll. 11.07, proposed revisions to board policy 3600 consultants, second reading. 11.08, proposed revisions to board policy 4030, non-discrimination in employment, second reading. Wow, it's the first
Move
time. in a long
approval
time.
of items 11.01 to 11.08.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Unger, a second by Mr. Buckman. Mr. Unger.
Yes.
Mr. Buckman.
Yes.
Mr. Clausen.
Yes.
Mr. Banfield.
Yes.
Ms. Dobler Drew.
Yes.
All right, motion and
Oh.
I'm a yes. Ms. Rogers not with us right now, so motion carries 6-0 with one absence. All right, anything for the advance agenda? Reports by board members. Ms. Dobler Drew.
Enjoyed everything, but especially two things about the district that I've done since the last meeting, the Student Senate. And it was my first opportunity to go to the Student Senate because of a conflicting normal conflict, but I excused myself from the normal commitment and certainly enjoyed being at the Student Senate for I believe the entire duration. Did they come back after pizza? Okay. So
Only 5 hours.
it was 3 hours and then I left before pizza. And the diversity that's represented there is quite amazing. I mean, last time when I was working in a neighboring district, we had all of the diversity down there and there wasn't that much up here, but it's been made up for over the past few years. Also, the grand opening of Morro Bay High School Cafe was very, very enjoyable yesterday with the mayor of Morro Bay present and some members of the city council there and board members and Dr. Prater and Ms. Frost and Mr. I'm going to name everybody, aren't I? I guess Mr. Pinkerton was there. And yeah, so that takes care of most of the people in this room and Ms. Dawson was there. So anyway, it was great. And I love the ribbon cutting and Mrs. Shepard did that very well and very nice. Thank you.
There's some big scissors.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were.
Yeah, they were sharp. Yeah, you don't want to be caught with scissors that don't work, right?
Where when you cut it, you actually have to, they just pull it apart. It's like Velcro together.
Yep.
That's cheap.
Mr.
Sharp scissors.
Anything else, Steve?
No, thank you.
Mr. Buckman, then Mr. Unger.
So again, want to take this time to thank some folks. Wanted to thank Mr. Roper at St. Louis High School for the work he's done with the students on the films. There was also a film at the film festival, I think from Laguna Middle School and another either school in the county or one of our schools. The film that the students at St. Louis High did took home an award. So that was really special. I want to thank the, I don't know how many people are involved. I mean, you went into the new, what they're calling the commons, but we used to call it cafeteria. You went into this room, which was basically just a big empty square. It was like a cube and it was empty when they started. And now it's like with the help of Mr. Pinkerton's staff, with the help of the Morro Bay High School staff, with food services, it's this amazingly inviting inviting room. The kitchen's amazing. So I just wanted to thank Aaron Primer and everybody for that. Just an amazing accomplishment. And it's the second day of teacher appreciation. I just, I don't even know how to say anything. It's absolutely amazing. But I also wanted to note that in our, in the consent agenda item for the human resources, we're losing 29 people from the teaching side, 29 staff people. So we have to somehow come up with a reason and understanding of why we're losing so many folks. But it's just, you know, they're what keeps America going. There's what keeps us on track. It's the teachers. It's where it happens after the parents. So anyway, that's my report. I'm just amazed.
Mr. Unger.
Yes, in addition to Mrs. Sheffer and I attending the CSBA AXA Coast to Coast Advocacy Conference, where we talked about special education funding, actually advocated for additional special education funding, mental health supports and additional funding for that, additional money for school meals, cybersecurity, broadband access, and other things. I wanted to point out that while we were in the halls of Congress, there is a congressional art competition. And last year's winner for our district was from San Luis Obispo High School. It was from a woman named Torin Larson with a beautiful pen and ink that called Distortion. And it was wonderful to see that. I went to the Bishop's Peak PTA sliming of Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Hollis, Miss Jones, the principal, and Mrs. Hollis, the secretary. They had met their marchathon goals, and that the reward for that was being able to slime their principal. It was pretty neat, and they made some good money for the school itself. Ms. Dobler Drew mentioned the Morro Bay High School cafe opening. Mr. Buckman was there. Mrs. Sheffer was there. We got fed. It was great. And then I did go to Los Osos Tough 2 obstacle course, and it was very impressive. There were hundreds of students, not only from Los Osos Middle School, but also from schools throughout the area. You know, and kids, when they call it the Tough 2, there were some pretty tough team challenges and obstacles. One of the ones I kind of watched for a while was on your belly under some ropes, having water poured on you. You know, it was pretty fun, and I think the whole staff at the middle school helped out. But I believe that Coach Nagler really is the person that has taken the lead on that, and I think we should say congratulations to the school and thanks to Coach Nagler.
Great. Not seeing any other lights on, we'll call it a night. Thank you very much, everybody. See you at a study session next week.